I don't know who might be on the other end of this, but if you're listening to this message, then I might already be dead. I know. You think I'm being too dramatic, but I promise you, I'm really not. Something seriously messed up is going on here. Something dark and twisted. And now that I've found out, I don't think they'll let me get out of here alive. I can hear them outside, hunting for me. It's so dark. I'm hiding in a closet, and I don't know how much time I have left, so... Okay, deep breaths. Deep breaths. I must sound freaking crazy to you, and maybe I am, but I'd like you to hear me out, okay? Please just hear me out. My name is Abigail Walters. I'm 17 years old, and I'm a senior at William Davis High, and... You know what? That isn't important. I don't have time to go into all the details. I'll try, but I think I should focus on telling you how I got here. The winter break just rolled around, and school is out for the next few weeks. Everyone was excited. I mean, who isn't excited about Christmas? The lights, the snow, Mariah Carey. The holidays were set to go great. Until last week. You see, I live alone with my mom. Always have, for as long as I can remember. My father was just some drunk who ran away a couple of years after I was born. It's just been me and my mom since then, and we've always spent Christmas together. This year, though, it was different. Mom got a fancy new job at some insurance company in town a few months ago, and the company called her up to attend a 2-week conference out of town over the holidays. She was flown out across the country, leaving me all alone at home for Christmas. She had wanted me to tag along with her, but attending a corporate conference halfway across the country sounded even more dreary than spending the holiday alone. So, I told her I'd stay. Why on earth did I tell her that? If only I hadn't... It's no use crying. Tears won't save me now. I've got to stay strong. Okay, deep breaths. So, before Mom left, Caroline Baker came over for dinner at our place. Caroline is... well, I don't know who Caroline is anymore. She used to be my best friend. We met in freshman year, and we've been super tight ever since. She'd spend every winter with her family in the woods. Her parents liked to hunt. She said it was a family tradition. Something they'd been doing for ages, apparently. They'd built a nice little cottage in the woods where they'd camp out for about a week before driving back to town when Christmas was over. This time, Caroline offered to take me along. It was a no-brainer. With Mom being gone and Caroline offering, it was the only logical course of action for me to take. A fun Christmas in the woods with my best friend and her family. What could go wrong? We've been searching the house for almost an hour now, Dad. Where is she?
Patience, love. She's still in here. I'm sure of that.
Maybe you're mistaken. Picking up an old scent or something?
Nah, it's her. You don't forget the smell of young blood. It's different. Richer. Trust me, she's close.
All right, then. But I'll be damned if I spend another 30 minutes searching for her when there's stew getting cold in the kitchen. We can always warm the stew back up. Not a big deal. But this? Come on. No use standing around. Let's keep looking. Ugh. Whew. That was close. Too close, if I'm being honest. I left home on the night of the 21st. Caroline came to pick me up. We hung out at her house for a couple of hours before her parents got back from work. They were so happy to see me. Looking back now, it felt a bit unnatural. Their excitement was so out of place. Parents don't usually get that excited when their kids' friends come over. But then again, it had been quite a while since I went over to Caroline's place, and so I thought... I don't know what I thought. I remember Mrs. Baker sniffing my hair when she hugged me. And I couldn't be sure at the time, but now I'm pretty sure I heard Mr. Baker's stomach rumble. Like he was hungry or something. I should have known something was wrong back then. I should have made up some excuse right then and bolted out their front door. But no, I stayed. On the morning of the 22nd, Mr. Baker informed us that we'd be driving up to their cabin in the woods. Caroline had told me once that usually they left town on Christmas Eve. That was the second red flag. We were leaving 3 days early, and it was frantic, almost desperate. When I asked Caroline about the change, she simply told me that plans had changed. What plans? I had no idea, but I tagged along regardless. This was my best friend. I had nothing to fear. I remember pulling up into the dirt track that led to the cabin and seeing it for the first time. It stood at the end of the narrow road, its dark windows like gaping sores on a corpse. I remember our conversation on the way to the house. Real quiet, isn't it? Yeah, that's why we love it. The perfect place for a hunt. At this point, I knew something was definitely wrong. They lit the candles in the cabin and led me to the dinner table. The next thing I felt was a strike to my head by some blunt object. I think it was a candelabra. I didn't really get a good look at it before I passed out. I woke up in the kitchen sometime later, strapped to a creaky wooden table in a dimly lit kitchen. In the dark, I could make out forms of what looked like other humans, strapped to tables like me. None of them were moving. My breath caught in my throat. I tried to wiggle my way out, but the binds would not budge. Mrs. Baker walked into the kitchen, sharpening a pair of butchering knives. Ah, little Caroline brought us a good one this year, didn't she? We always wanted a taste of you. Oh, yes. How juicy you'll be in the stew. Mrs. Baker, what are you doing? I don't understand. Christmas came early, love. Perhaps not for you. But when we're done, I'm sure you won't mind one bit. She turned around to inspect a pot of stew with pieces of meat bubbling over a fire. I gagged as soon as I realized what was going on. These people were going to eat me. Mrs. Baker went to one of the other tables and began hacking and slicing. I saw an opportunity in her absence. One leg of the table I was tied to was shaky, creaking in protest as I struggled. Luckily, as I was next to a wall, I managed to gently rock back and forth until I gathered enough momentum to push myself off of it. The table landed on its side, with me still on it. It splintered with a loud crack, loosening the ropes that bound me. Mrs. Baker turned around when she heard the sound. She screamed like an animal and charged at me with her knives. I reached for the broken leg of the wooden table and swung at her head with all the force I could muster. She folded to the floor, but I didn't wait around to see the extent of the damage. I bolted out of the kitchen and towards the front door. Unfortunately, Carol and her dad were on the front porch. There was no way I could sneak by unnoticed. I had to get out of sight as soon as possible, so I ran upstairs to the attic. It was dark and dusty and quiet, but at least it was safe. I found an old drawer big enough to crawl into, and I've been here ever since. Thankfully, my phone was still in my jacket pocket. It has a low battery and there's barely any signal out here, so I don't know what good it'll do. At least I was able to tell this story. Maybe someone, sometime in the future, will find it and hear my story. Or maybe not. It's just past midnight. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm sore. I don't know how much longer I can hold out here. It's been a little over an hour and they haven't found me yet. Maybe they think I managed to run away, which is a good thing, I guess. But how on earth am I going to get out of here without being seen? Bye, Sarah. Have a lovely weekend. You too, dear.
Our accountant Martha left for the elevator. I packed my stuff, set my hair with a bunch of bobby pins, and got up from my chair. It was finally time to go home. Everyone has left already. I sat at the bus stop. I always take the last bus home. It's only been a few weeks since I joined this new advertising agency. I can't afford to rent a car yet. Having not much to do, I was checking my phone when my eyes went to the other side of the street. Under the light posts, there stood a man. A homeless man with disheveled hair and dirty, raggy clothes. He was watching me. I ignored him and carried on scrolling on my newsfeed. A few seconds later, I looked up again. The man was now sitting on the sidewalk in a crouched position and smiling at me. He had a big, creepy smile that gave me goosebumps. That's when I suddenly felt a hand on my shoulder.
Hey, Sarah?
Huh?
It was my colleague, Nerdy Larry. Everyone calls him that because he works with the tech team.
Oh, Larry. Still here?
Yeah, I had some last moments mailing to do. You alright?
Yes, just waiting for the last bus.
I see. Listen, I have my car. I can drop you home if you want.
That's so kind of you, but I'll wait for the bus anyway. Thanks for the gesture, though.
You sure? I mean, it won't be any trouble.
I will be fine. You go home, Larry.
Okay, see you Monday then.
Yeah, good night.
I watched Larry walk towards the parking lot. Honestly, it's about a half an hour ride to my house, and the last thing I would want is to bore myself with nerdy Larry. Also, the bus would be here any minute, and I didn't like people treating me as a damsel in distress. My eyes went back to the guy across the street, and he wasn't there. I searched, but the man was gone. I let out a big sigh of relief when suddenly I heard a chuckle close to me. I slowly turned my head to the right, and there he was. Standing 10 feet away from me, his rotten teeth and greedy eyes formed an evil face. He licked his lips disgustingly and then started coming towards me. I got up, feeling scared. There was no one around except me and this scary stranger. I started walking too. I thought if I go away, he would stop following me. I took a few steps ahead, leaving the bus stand behind me, and then turned around. He was still following me, and his smile got even bigger now. I increased my pace when I suddenly heard running footsteps behind me. I looked back and saw the homeless man running to me at full speed, stretching his filthy hands to grab me. I lost it and started running for my life.
Help! Help! Somebody!
But there was no one, not a single person nearby. That's when I saw Larry's car pulling out of the parking lot. Not wasting a single second, I ran to him. He turned the car around and was heading in my direction, but before he could pick up speed, I bumped into his bonnet. He hit the brakes, making the tires screech. I opened the driver's side door and hopped in his car, panting heavily.
Please, that man, he was trying to...
Hey, calm down. Calm down.
Suddenly, the man came in front of the car and stopped. He looked at me with furious anger, like I've robbed him of the ideal chance of sick pleasure. He then looked at Larry, cursed him for being there to rescue me, and disappeared into the dark parking lot.
Looks like he was desperate for you.
You don't say.
This area isn't safe after dark, Sarah. You should get a car.
I know, if it's not too much trouble, will you drop me home tonight?
Larry's face lit up in joy.
Of course. It's no trouble at all.
He started the car and I rolled down the window to get some fresh air.
Still scared, huh?
I don't know what would have happened if you left early.
Don't think about it anymore. You're safe now. Here, drink some water.
I chugged the water as if it was my last day on Earth.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Would you like me to turn on the music? It's going to be a long ride after all.
Sure, music will be good.
The car radio turned on, playing some old 70s song. I rested my head on the seat. I was determined that for the next 2 days, I will only eat, sleep, and drink without getting out of my house. I couldn't wait to get home. After 5 minutes, Larry started chatting about his weekend plans.
I'm gonna buy a dog tomorrow. I was planning for it for a long time, you know?
Oh, that's great.
He was talking, and I was trying my best to take part in the conversation, but suddenly my vision started to blur.
Hey, what's happening to me?
Sorry? What do you mean?
My eyes. I can't... What was in the water?
I looked at Larry, trying my best to keep my eyes open. He didn't answer my question, just increased the volume of the car radio.
So, as I was saying, I'm thinking about getting a pit bull. You know they're super smart and get highly motivated by food. Isn't that cool?
Larry? What did you give me?
Do you like dogs? I'm sure they'll like you. Everyone likes you. You're so beautiful.
What was in the water? What did you...
I fainted. I woke up in a dimly lit basement. I could barely move my body. It was now evident that Larry drugged me. A mild, scary growl could be heard from a close distance, but it was too dark to see anything. Suddenly, the lights turned on. I first noticed Larry in his pajamas. He was holding a leash in his hand, which led to the collar of a giant-sized pit bull. The creature took out its huge, drooling tongue and kept watching me.
Good morning, Sarah. Meet Andy. He's my new friend.
Larry let out a creepy smile, and his eyes sparkled. For the first time, I noticed that I've been handcuffed and tied to a sewage pipe.
Help me! Somebody! I'm down here, please help me!
Ow! Stop screaming! I've already soundproofed the basement a week ago.
Tears rolled down my eyes in shock. Larry crouched down to my level and touched my face with his filthy hand. He caressed my cheek like a kid treats his new toy.
You're so beautiful. No wonder I went crazy for you.
What is happening? Where am I?
You're in my house. I brought you here after you got sick last night.
You drugged me?
Okay, fine. The water I gave you in the car last night had sleeping pills, but I only did it so I could bring you here. That's all.
Are you going to rape me?
What? No! No! I could never think of hurting you!
He started walking back and forth while trying to explain himself.
Look, Sarah, all I want is you to be my girlfriend. I fell for you since the day you walked into the office. Remember that red dress you wore? It's only a shame that dress got burnt while ironing and you had to throw it away.
How? How do you know that?
Well, I watched you for days with my binoculars. I followed you home every night after work and watched you going on with your life from your window. I saw you eating alone, drinking alone, sleeping alone. That's when I realized that you're just like me. We both need each other to complete our lives.
Larry rushed to the other side of the room and came back with a shoebox. He took out some Polaroid photos. Those were pictures of me snapped on regular days. Me taking the bus from the office, unlocking the door, and even changing my clothes. Now I got sure, Nerdy Larry is a dangerous man. He's been stalking me for a very long time.
See? You turned my world upside down, Sarah. Now I can only think about you. Only you.
He came really close and smelled my face and hair in a very scary way. I could see the crazy in his eyes.
Please, just let me go. I won't tell anyone, I swear. Please, Larry.
Don't say that.
We can pretend this never happened. Just let me go, please.
Stop saying that, Sarah.
I'm begging you, please. I just want to go home.
Shut up! I'm not letting you go anywhere! You're mine, and you belong with me! Everything's going to be fine. Once you get to know me, you'll like it here. Now, who's hungry?
Larry let go of me and grabbed the dog's leash.
Was all of this pre-planned?
He turned around to look at me. His face formed a huge grin.
The homeless man didn't chase you on purpose. I paid him $20 to scare you enough so that you'd get inside my car. I didn't want to force you, you know. I honestly care for you, Sarah. Someday you'll understand. I'll be back with your favorite egg salad sandwich. I love you, Sarah McLovin.
Larry left with his giant dog and turned the lights off, leaving me in the dark to suffer. I cried until my tears dried up. No one has the slightest idea that I've been held captive in a crazy freak's basement. God, how did I end up here? I was beginning to give up because my hands were cuffed and without a key, there was no way I could free myself. If I could just have a key. Wait, a key. I touched my hair. The bobby pins are still there. I plucked one. It was difficult with tied hands, but I managed somehow. I said to myself,
Okay, you can do this.
I inserted the tip of the pin into the keyhole of the handcuff. I struggled for a minute straight, and then I heard the click. The handcuffs came off. I jumped to my feet. I was finally free. I wanted to scream, but it wasn't the best time. I grabbed a spanner from the shelf in the basement. My heartbeat got faster. Slowly and quietly, I walked up the stairs. Luckily, the basement door was open. I turned the doorknob as quietly as possible. I could hear music coming from the hallway. Nerdy Larry must be cooking in the kitchen, having the best time of his life. I peeked from the door, trying to locate the pit bull. I couldn't see it anywhere. The narrow hallway stood in front of me, and at the end stood the main door of the house. All I need to do now is run for my life, open that door, and scream for help. I braced myself. 1, 2, 3. I started running at full speed. I ran past the living room and heard the dog bark once, and then the pit bull was running behind me. It was after me, and I feared for my life. The main door was inches away, and I had no intention to stop. I grabbed a doorknob and twisted it. The door slightly opened, and I saw this truck passing by.
Where do you think you're going?
Larry lunged from the back, grabbing my mouth and blocking my screams, pulling me inside the house once again. He started pulling me back to the basement when I hit him on the head with a spanner.
Ah, you witch!
He almost let go of me, but the pit bull blocked my way. Yes, that damn dog ruined my perfect plan. It started barking like a hound from hell. There was no way I could tackle that beast on my own, so I gave up.
Please, just let me go.
Holding his bleeding head, Larry put a knife to my throat.
Keep your voice down, or I will slit your throat. No one will know what happened to your body, Sarah.
My cry died inside my throat. I was brought back into the basement. Larry didn't know I unlocked it using my bobby pin. He thought the handcuff was broken, so he put on a new set of handcuffs, and for extra caution, another set on my legs. He then looked at his pit bull with a highly proud face. He threw a piece of meat at him, and the dog chomped on it with great joy.
Didn't I tell you how motivated they are about food? Now you know he's a good dog, a great dog to keep an eye on you, no doubt. Damn it! You hit me hard, Sarah. Why did you do that? I didn't even touch you.
I hope you burn in hell, Larry. People will find out. Everyone will start looking for me when I won't arrive at work, and then they will talk to the cops. You'll be in big trouble, Larry. I swear, you freak.
Oh, no. Don't worry about that. You see this?
He took out a bunch of keys tied to a Batman keychain. My stomach dropped. It was my house keys.
I'll quickly drop by your house and mail from your laptop that you're quitting your job over some family issues and that you're going back to your parents' house.
What?
I will also leave a letter for your landlord, whom you've already paid in advance, so he won't be looking for you at least. People in the office will mention you for a week or so, and then everybody will believe you went home. Whatever happens next, I will dutifully take care of them. As I said, you belong here. I will make sure you never leave.
I was numb with fear. This man had thought it all through. God knows how long he has been planning to kidnap me.
I better get started. And since you didn't behave, you aren't going to get your sandwich. I'll be back in an hour or so. Till then, Andy here will watch you. And trust me, he won't back down with one hit. Love. So better not piss him off.
He left the dog with me and left the house. I could hear the fading sound of his car engine. Is this how my life ends? Rotting in this basement, enslaved by my stalker for the rest of my life. The pit bull was sitting in the corner. Its eyes were on target. I tried to stand up and the dog barked. My mom's face flashed in front of my eyes. It was then I realized how ungrateful we are about life. When we have everything, we hardly appreciate them. And now that I'm tied to this psycho's house, I fully realize the worth of being alive, the value of being free, the freedom of doing as you please. I looked at the dog one more time. It was looking back at me.
You only care for food, huh? That's what motivates you the most? Fine.
I took out one more bobby pin from my hair and unlocked both handcuffs in the next 10 minutes. Now I was free to move, but if I did, I knew the dog would bite me, and he will for sure. So, I did what it took to be free. I bit my arm. I took out a chunk of my own flesh with my very own teeth. Yes, it hurt. It hurt like a bitch, but I was adamant now. This was my last chance. I knew if Larry comes back, I will be doomed here forever. I took the final straw. Blood rushed from the vein, but I ignored the excruciating pain. I grabbed the piece of pink flesh and called out to the dog.
Hey, Andy. Want some meat? Come here. Come on, boy.
The dog got up. He probably sensed the air. A low growl came from his mouth, and then he walked up to me. I threw the meat at him, and he licked the meat like a treat. Finally, he wagged his tail at me, and I knew I had him on my team. While he ate the rest, I slowly got up and came out of the basement. Larry wasn't home yet, and I had the perfect chance. Holding my bleeding arm, I reached for the main door. I twisted it open and turned around to take one last look at the house. The dog didn't follow me this time. So here I am, finally set to escape my stalker. But what after that? I can call the cops. They'll arrest Larry, and he will be behind bars for some years, and that's it. The man has given me enough trauma to sleep with a gun under my pillow for the rest of my life. I literally chewed my own flesh and tasted my own blood just to escape him. Staying behind bars will never be enough for a psycho like him. I didn't leave. I closed the door and searched the house. I found a baseball bat under the couch. I ate the sandwich Larry made for me, and I dressed my wound using his first aid kit. I fed Andy his dog food as well, and then I waited. I waited for him to come back.
How did you get up here? Did you learn to open doors now?
Not him. Me!
I hit Andy with the baseball bat hard enough to knock him out. I'm back at work now. I took Monday off because I had to soundproof my basement and do a couple duties. I've given Andy to the dog shelter. I'm not gonna trust a creature that can easily be manipulated with food. Now I go home and I don't feel lonely anymore. I pour myself a glass of wine, go to the basement and talk to my friend, Nerdy Larry. He can't see me though. I suppose that's what happens when you pour acid into someone's eyes. But Larry can hear me well. He can't speak either, as I had to get rid of his tongue. It's safe that way. I have emailed the office from his home computer, saying that he quit his job. He never really existed for the world, so no one's looking for him. That's a relief. He now lives in a cage. I don't like handcuffing. It's not effective enough. What can I say? I learned from my stalker's mistakes. I clean after him, I bathe him, I feed him. No matter how you see it, I think I am pretty more humane than him. It felt a little weird to have a human pet, but now, now I'm having the best time of my life. Being a horror writer can seem like a terrifying thing, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it is. At least in the beginning. When I was just starting to write, I would look for inspiration by writing at 4 or 5 a.m. And when the ideas were flowing and the stories were good, I couldn't help but close all the doors of my closet or my bathroom because I was scared of my own stories. As time went by, I started writing about real cases on a YouTube channel, and as I found out about real cases, I got more and more into horrifying and unbelievable cases. As I delved deeper into the minds of the killers, the fear increased. But all that didn't last long. When a writer gets too deep into the world of horror, he loses all sensibility about it. He writes about the most terrible cases without a drop of sweat, without feeling anything at all. My name is Gustavo, and this used to happen to me until I had an experience like the one I wrote about that made me understand the real terror suffered by all the real victims of whom we wrote the story. I may not have been locked in a back room with an evil cat that day. I may not have summoned a demon playing Ouija on Halloween, or been stalked by someone from the deep web on Omegle. But on that day, my life was as much at risk as any of them. It all started on a summer night, and I have to tell you that I hate the heat. so I started writing so I wouldn't have to think about running out of air. I know a lot of writers who still use typewriters, but since all my stories were destined for my blog or a YouTube channel, I obviously preferred my computer. I got up from my chair and headed for the fridge to get a cold drink. What I didn't know at the time, and wouldn't find out by watching the cameras hours later, is that I wasn't alone. There was someone watching me through the window. With my mind on a case I was researching for my next story, I headed to my computer and after sipping my apple soda, continued typing. At that point, it wasn't too late, so I got a call from my girlfriend, unaware of what was going on behind me.
Hey, how are you? Of course I can accompany you. I'll wait for you at the bus stop tomorrow morning. Great. Let me just finish this story and I'll call you on Skype, okay? Sure. Love ya.
Again, it wasn't until I saw the cameras several hours later that I understood that my life was at the mercy of a psychopath. I continued to write, but suddenly, and without being able to save anything I wrote, the power in my house went out.
Come on, really?
This sometimes happened in my house, as the fuse box was a bit old, and I had to go down to the basement to fix it. What I didn't know was that the person who was behind me before had not only walked in the direction of the basement, but he was the one who cut the light. In the dark, I descended the stairs to the basement. I went in slow motion so as not to fall, but I had to admit that I felt a little scared. Until now, I had been lucky that the power outages were usually during the day. As this caught me off guard, I didn't even have time to prepare my flashlight, as I didn't know where I had left it. I continued down the stairs one by one and in slow motion, telling myself that it was just my house, that I had nothing to do with it, when in reality, my life was at risk with every step I took down those stairs. After descending those steps that took forever, I walked slowly in the dark to the fuse box. I didn't need light for this, just to lift a switch that was just a few steps away from me, but that felt like it was miles away. When I got there, I reached out with my fingers and found the switch. The light was back on, and I breathed a sigh of comfort. I walked relieved towards the stairs, again thinking about the story and how much I had lost of it because of the cut, when suddenly, I heard a noise coming from the fuse box, so I turned and looked at it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. A person was inside my house. I couldn't see anything and I got desperate, so I ran as fast as I could up the stairs. But in an attempt to go faster, my foot slipped and I fell to the bottom of the basement with the invader. Terrified and with an extremely sore leg, I couldn't muster the strength to stand up and climb the stairs, so I crawled backwards and stayed against the wall, hiding. The only source of light coming into the basement was a small trickle of light coming from a small window at the top of the basement, but that didn't help me at all to know where I was. I tried to keep quiet, not to make the slightest noise. I closed my eyes to sharpen my senses and heard him better than ever. That person was still standing next to the fuse box, but now he was coming in my direction. Every step felt like a huge rumble. I took a deep breath and clutched my chest, trying not to make any noise that would give me away, trying not to breathe loudly or cry from fear. Meanwhile, the terror continued and was getting closer and closer to me. Step, step, step. He was getting closer and closer to me. Meanwhile, I could feel everything. I felt my heart beating violently, my blood rushing desperately through my veins. I felt that for every second that passed, I was getting older. The footsteps stopped next to me. Had the invader seen me? I didn't hear the footsteps anymore. Instead, I heard him breathing. His breathing sounded agitated. Surely he was not getting much air, not with that huge mask he was wearing. I thought about fighting him, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I was really scared. The footsteps began to move away. He was looking for me. I took advantage of the fact that he moved away from me and started to crawl up the stairs, very slowly. I was going to make it. I was going to escape from there. Desperate, I didn't realize that the keys to the basement were still in my pocket. Because of the friction, they slipped out of my pants and hit a step. I managed to catch them before they continued falling, but the damage was already done. The intruder ran, so I made a last effort to go for the door. but the man jumped at my leg and started pulling me back. I grabbed the door, and with several kicks, I managed to hit him until he let me go and fell. When he got to the bottom, he made no effort to climb back up. As the thread of light coming from outside pointed at his mask, he just stared at me, frozen. I locked the door and called the police, who soon arrived. When they came down, the man was still in the same position he was in when I had escaped. Outside the mask, he was just a normal man. Nothing striking, a face that could be that of a neighbor, a friend, or even a relative. When the police questioned him, he confessed that he was a fan of mine, that he had found out where I lived, and that he wanted to leave a mark on my life forever. You're wondering if this person was going to kill me. The only thing I will tell you was that this man was a killer on the run, with more than 10 fatal victims. I never heard from him again, nor did I care to. But as much as I hated to admit it, he had succeeded. From that day on, every time I wrote a horror story, I thought of him. In the fear I felt when he was next to me, and in that horrible moment when, even for a few seconds, I thought I would not get out of that situation alive. My name is Lily, and at almost 40 years old, you could say I've done it all in my life. I've been a police officer, a volunteer firefighter, and even a traffic officer. Of all the jobs I've had, would you believe me if I told you that the most dangerous of them was babysitting? Seems hard to believe, doesn't it? Well, maybe when I tell you this story, you will understand why. That was my first day as a nanny, and the last thing I imagined that day would be my last. I had to take care of my neighbor's family, people I had known all my life. Their children were a bit naughty, but they felt comfortable with me. They knew me since they were born.
Lily, are you going to take care of us today?
Yes, Angie. Are you happy?
Yes!
Hey, Lily, can we play a scary game?
We'll see.
Well, kids, looks like you're getting along already.
I promise to take care of them, Mr. and Mrs. Willis.
Don't worry, Lily. We trust you. Much more than anyone else we may have called.
We'll be back in a couple of hours. Be sure to send them to bed early, yes? No, it's a Saturday.
I don't want to go to sleep early.
Sorry, guys. My hands are tied.
You guys listen to Lily. Behave yourselves. Yeah, Mom.
Okay.
And so, the Willis family left, leaving me alone with the two who started bombarding me with questions.
Lily, I'm hungry.
Lily, can we have ice cream before dinner?
Lily, I don't want to take a bath.
Lily? Lily, I'm talking to you. Lily?
Oh, you guys, stop it. I've only got 2 ears.
But there's 2 of us.
But you're talking like there's 2,000 of you. Talk to me one at a time. You first, Angie.
I'm hungry.
Okay, I'll get the food ready. Now you, James.
I want to play Bloody Mary.
What?
Bloody Mary, the horror game I told you about before. All we have to do is go to the bathroom, turn off all the lights, and say her name 3 times in the mirror. And if you do...
Bloody Mary will appear. I know, I used to play it with my friends when I was younger.
Wow! And have you ever seen anything weird?
Nope. It's just a myth. Guys, you shouldn't waste your time with it.
But you promised me we were gonna play.
But I also told Angie I was gonna make dinner.
No, I want to play too.
What? Angie, you're only 12. This is not for you.
I said I want to play. You promised.
Ugh, okay, guys, but just for a little while, and then we eat, okay?
Yeah!
You're the best, Lily.
I know.
At that moment, I didn't feel like the best. I knew I had to have more authority and send the kids to lunch, but my inexperience made me nervous, and I accepted what the kids told me so that they would put in a good word for me with the parents. Somewhat regretful and uncomfortable, I went along with them and helped them set up the game.
Hey, what are you doing with those scissors?
It's part of the game. You have to leave Bloody Mary a pair of scissors to come and kill you. Otherwise, she won't show up.
Why would you want her to kill you?
Because she won't come otherwise.
All right, but I'll handle the scissors. Don't touch them, understand?
Yes.
We set everything up, and I must admit that when I played it, we didn't even do half of what we had to do, so I was a little scared. We turned off all the lights, and with some candles lit, we walked to the bathroom mirror.
Lily, remember that if Bloody Mary shows up and blows out the candles, you have to light them again to make her go away.
I know. Don't worry. As I told you, it's just a game.
With a lot of doubts, I started to play the game. I approached the mirror and started to say,
Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Bloody Angie, what's wrong?
I don't want to play anymore. This is too scary.
Okay, let's stop here.
But we were so close!
James, that's enough. Can't you see that your sister's terrified? Come on, sweetie, let's go to eat. What? How did they all go out at the same time?
It's Bloody Mary. It's Bloody Mary.
Stay calm. It can't be Bloody Mary. I didn't even finish saying her name.
Lily? Behind us!
When I turned around, I couldn't believe it. It was true. A being with an indescribable figure was behind us. It looked like a woman, but there was something on her face. Something was completely wrong. I began to feel a strange atmosphere, like pressure. Fear took hold of me, and holding the children's hands tightly, I began to walk backwards.
Kids, run!
Desperate, we all ran together and hid in the dining room. On the way, I tried to turn on the lights, but they didn't work. I tried my best to open the door, but it was stuck too. It was as if we were trapped in another world. When we got behind the curtains on the couch, I realized that at a slow and terrifying pace, Bloody Mary was walking towards us. Hiding was pointless. Somehow she knew where we were, and it wasn't with her sight, as she didn't have any eyes.
Kids, if I light the candles, the game will be over. Go to the kitchen to hide. I'll run to the bathroom.
No, you mustn't go! She'll kill you!
There's no other choice, James. I have to.
You don't understand! You can't—
Without letting James finish speaking, I ran toward the bathroom, leaving behind the entity that was following us. I quickly grabbed the lighter from my pocket and noticed how the scissors that were here had disappeared. I grabbed the candles and began to light them. My only advantage in this situation was that Bloody Mary was quite slow. I felt I was about to defeat her when I realized something terrifying. No matter how much fire there was, the candles would not light. I tried again and again, but it was too late. I was already locked in with Bloody Mary in front of me. Terrified, I dropped my lighter and crawled back crying, begging uselessly for mercy. When I saw the demon's eyes, a feeling of pain and sadness came over my whole body. As she approached, I could do nothing but stare into her eyes. Every second I did so, I felt a sensation worse than death. I felt I was lost in an endless emptiness of suffering that did not even belong to me. I felt that I didn't want to be alive anymore. It was a feeling that I didn't even know could exist, but at the same time, it was the definition of something worse than death. Surrendered, I watched as the scissors slowly approached my body, ready to open my skin to take my life. Suddenly, the light returned, and as if nothing, Bloody Mary disappeared. Behind her, I heard the voice of a crying child with lit candles in his hand.
Sorry, Lily. I summoned her. I said her name 3 times when you guys went to the kitchen. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay, James. You saved us.
After that, the children went straight to bed. They didn't want to eat, they didn't want to bathe, but they didn't want to sleep either. They laid there with the light on, asking me not to leave all night. When the parents arrived, they were proud of my work, but instead of going home safely, I asked them if I could spend the night with them, to which they happily agreed. And that was my first and last day as a babysitter. Many years later, I still see them. I'm like their big sister, but I would never consider babysitting again. I'm not interested in being famous with this story, much less convincing you that the paranormal is real. I tell you this for one reason only, to warn you. Do not play Bloody Mary. Never play Bloody Mary. Even if you don't believe in the ritual, I assure you that you should not risk it being real, because for just an innocent game, Bloody Mary will appear, and I assure you that a fate worse than death awaits you. A few years ago, when I was in my mid-20s, I was working at my job as a manager at KFC. It was a slow afternoon, and we only had one order. A middle-aged man was standing next to the counter. I went over and handed him his tray. The man stuck out his hand and suddenly asked,
How much does a polar bear weigh?
Sorry?
I had heard this line before and internally groaned.
Enough to break the ice. Hi, I'm Barry. You must be...
He leaned close, looking at my name tag, which made me pretty uncomfortable.
Tatiana. Did I read it right?
Yes. I have to get back to work now.
I smiled and turned away.
Wait!
The man said loudly. I turned back towards him, trying my best to keep my smile in place. I'd had enough creepers in my day to know one when I saw him. He had too much confidence, and he wasn't even all that attractive looking. Still, he was going to go ahead with this, and I was at work, so I had to be nice.
Would you go on a date with me?
My mind started reeling with the possibility to reject him. I didn't see it coming straight like that, so I tried to come up with a reasonable rejection. Should I say that I have a boyfriend? Or I'm a lesbian? I just didn't want to date some strange guy I never saw before in my life.
Not right now. Enjoy your food, Barry.
I ended up stumbling out, still trying to be polite and get him away from me. He wouldn't take no for an answer. I kept saying it, and eventually, a few more customers walked in, giving me a chance to end the conversation with creepy Barry.
Just give me your number so I can get back to you if you change your mind.
I have to go now. Bye.
I said, turning away and just leaving him standing there, trying to call me back. One of my employees asked if I knew him.
Nope. Never seen him before. I hope he never comes back.
If only that hope could come true. Shortly after the incident, I started working nights for extra pay. During the nighttime, only the drive-thru was open, so no guests were inside. It was kind of nice working those shifts, if it wasn't for Barry. For the next few weeks, this man kept coming through my drive-thru, bringing me things. Like a rose, a box of chocolates. I kept turning down his advances the best way I could. I'm not all that forceful of a person, but there are only so many ways you can say no. He also kept calling the store at all shifts to see if I was there. He would not leave me alone. And I'm not lying about me rejecting him constantly. I kept telling him I did not want to date him. He still kept coming back. I can't tell you how much he just creeped me out either. One night when I was driving home from work, I saw his car behind me. He flickered his headlights, gesturing for me to stop. I freaked out. Why is he following me? There's no way I can drive home now, or else this creep will know where I live. So, I increased my speed to dodge and confuse him. I took the highway, and Barry was still behind. He began honking his horn like crazy. My hands were numb, and I felt that I would crash as I was going at a high speed. There was no other car to whom I could ask for help. Suddenly, I spotted this cop car patrolling from the other side, and I intentionally increased my speed even more so that he could follow me. My plan worked, and the cop took a quick U-turn and followed me. Barry by then realized that I wasn't alone anymore, so he drove past me. When his car crossed over me, I saw his face. He gave me a death stare for tricking him. Once he was gone, I pulled over the car and told the cops everything. They escorted me home safely. It was hard for me to fall asleep that night. I could only imagine Barry's creepy face staring at me from the window. I even had a nightmare that Barry was watching me sleep standing next to my bed. The next morning, I decided to put an end to this. Barry came through my drive-thru again. Yes, he was one tough mother kicker, and I had finally had enough. In front of all the customers and employees of KFC, I screamed at him before he could even open his mouth.
Barry, I will never date you. Never. Please leave me alone. Do not mistake this for me being coy or something. I do not like you. Leave me alone.
The hurt on his face was apparent.
Really?
He asked, like he never thought he could get rejected.
Yes, Really. And if you ever follow me or try to come near me, I will call the cops on you. I already told them about you last night, so you better watch out. Bloody creep.
I let it all out and walked away. It was getting to the point where I wanted to call the cops on him, although it was doubtful they'd do anything since he wasn't violent or anything against me. Barry shook his head down and left the KFC outlet. When I thought it was all over, life shocked me. Sometime later that night, Barry again pulled up to the drive-thru. I heard his voice through the speaker again.
Tatiana, I need to tell you something.
He pulled up to the window. I refused to even go near it, and one of my male employees spoke with him. The male employee gave me a letter when Barry pulled away. I opened the letter, and it was a card. Inside was written,
Tatiana, you have the prettiest eyes I have ever seen. I would like to put them in a jar on my desk so I can look at them all day.
I finally called the cops on him and later got a restraining order. I changed my address and my job. I had to, or else I wouldn't have felt safe. I still don't. Whenever I drive home alone, I keep watching over my shoulder if any car is following me. So far, I haven't even seen Barry after that incident, and I hope I never do. Peter Grimrose looked back at the surgeon who just did his wife's delivery.
When can I take them home? After 24 hours. Look, Mr. Grimrose, she will be no less than any normal child. It's nothing but an unfortunate occurrence that your daughter has been born with a partial face. I'm happy that you're accepting her the way she is. Congratulations.
The new father smiled, but only the gods heard his heart.
People of Moorview are in the mood for celebrations right now. Today, one of their own has taken the seat of town mayor after a successful win at the town hall elections. Mayor Peter Grimrose addressed his people at the local churchyard and got applause and cheer in return. Despite having a disfigured daughter, he didn't hide her inside the house. He is quite proud of her and thinks she is more than capable to live a normal life. People of this town raised their voices in support. They said this is exactly how a strong and supportive father should be. Irrespective of his inherited family wealth, the mayor chose to put his daughter in public school so that she could have a normal life like every kid in this town. This shows the robustness and broad-minded mentality of the mayor. No doubt his impressive character won people's hearts. Stay tuned for more news. We'll be back after a short break.
Alice was getting her lunch from the locker when a big damn basketball hit her head. With the sudden attack, she lost her balance and fell on the floor. Her lunchbox broke, and the noodles from it scattered everywhere.
Look at that freak. Poor Alice Grimrose.
She got up and saw Edmund and his gang standing behind her. They laughed.
Leave me alone, Edmund.
Like the rest of your face?
Alice slammed the locker and ran into the girls' washroom crying. She stopped in front of the bathroom mirror. Her long, black hair covered her partial face. She never cuts her hair. She lets it grow waist length. Her shaking hand swiped the hair behind her ears, and her scary face flashed in the mirror. 1,000 times she tried to imagine how her face would look if she had the rest.
You are ugly. You are hideous, Alice.
She spent the rest of her day inside the bathroom. She kept waiting for the final bell so she could end this horrible day and go home. When the bell rang, she waited for 10 minutes and came out of the washroom. All the kids were gone by then. Alice heaved a sigh of relief. She can go home now. That night at the dinner table, Alice asked her father,
Dad, why can't I be homeschooled?
Mr. Grimrose looked at his wife, who was eating quietly.
That's not possible, Alice. You're already enrolled in the town school.
But they hate me, Dad. They call me a freak and treat me like shit.
I will not tolerate such language in this house, so think before speaking.
Please, Dad, I swear I will study hard even if I get homeschooled. Mom can teach me.
A rush of anger clouded Mayor Grimrose's face.
Is this all you're doing?
What are you saying?
You're secretly manipulating Alice to leave the public school.
No, Peter. Can't you see how miserable she feels there? If she isn't comfortable there, then we as parents should listen.
I know my duty as a parent, Missy. No way my daughter is going to hide from this world. Why don't you see that the town looks up to our family? We have an image to uphold. If she quits now, everyone will call us weak.
You mean they will realize how you used my illness for your sympathy vote, Dad?
Shut up!
Mayor Grimrose slapped Alice, and the house sank into darkness.
You'll graduate from Moorview High School, and that's the end of this discussion.
Peter Grimrose left the room, and poor Alice threw away her dinner plate. It broke into pieces. Mrs. Grimrose held her hand, trying her best to comfort their suffering daughter.
Alice, your father wants what's best for you. I will see your teacher, and we'll punish those kids who are tormenting you. Everything will be all right then.
Really? You mean like last time? When you complained and they made my life even worse?
She got up from the table and stormed upstairs. Missy Grimrose followed her, like a heartbroken caregiver.
Alice, listen to me.
Alice went straight into her room.
I wish I was never born. I'm like a monster to everyone.
She slammed the door in her mother's face. Mrs. Grimrose sat on the stairs crying. She knows very well that she has no power to go against her husband. If she had, she could have taken Alice to a plastic surgeon long ago. She too knows very well how her husband used their dysfunctional daughter to climb up to the seat of town mayor, whom the town worships as the ideal father is the most selfish parent in reality. Alice looked around and saw Edmund with his ruthless gang standing in the corner laughing at her like usual. She wanted no trouble today, so she skillfully avoided them the entire day. When the final bell rang, she came up with a plan. Instead of leaving the usual exit, she took the back door. Alice walked down the hallway, constantly looking over her shoulders. Just as she stepped outside the school gate, the three demons blocked her way.
We have some unfinished business, ugly.
You didn't forget, did you, Alice?
Let's get her.
Before Alice could turn back and run, the two girls jumped and grabbed her hands. They held her tightly while Edmund took out a pair of scissors from his backpack.
Why are you so scared to show your face to this world? Come, let's make things easy for you. Let everyone see how filthy your face is!
Edmund chopped Alice's long black hair from wherever he could. Sam put her hand over Alice's mouth so that no one could hear her scream. The three cruel kids robbed her of the only chance she had to appear normal in front of the world. With her hair cut to inches from waist length, her entire face was now exposed.
Look at the ugliest girl in the world!
Die, you pig!
They kept cursing and insulting her while she sat on the floor crying. Just then, she noticed the broken window above her. Pieces of glass were still hanging on it. She picked one up and attacked Edmund with it. Her first blow cut him in the arm. Then she kicked Trisha on the leg, which made her fall to the ground.
You witch! I'm gonna kill you now!
Alice realized they were going to kill her if she stayed here a second more. She turned around and ran straight to the woods. Edmund's footsteps mixed with Trisha's and Samantha's vengeful screams made Alice fear for her life. The woods were deep. Alice didn't care where she was going. She just wanted to go home and never come out of her room again. She ran and ran until the chasing footsteps faded away. After running for quite some time, she finally stopped to look back. She didn't see her bullies. Her scared eyes kept searching for them, though. Alice was looking everywhere. The woods are completely silent now. Only Alice's panting breath can be heard amidst the tall trees. Just when she began thinking that she was safe now, a hand pulled her from behind. And her scream echoed. The Grimroses were sitting in their living room with worried faces. Two cops standing next to them, constantly asking questions.
When was the last time you saw your daughter? Right before she left for school. Is it possible she left with a friend?
She has no friends.
Control yourself, Missy.
Don't tell me what to do. Our daughter hasn't come home for 3 days, Peter. 3 frickin' days!
Mrs. Grimrose left the room. Mayor Grimrose tried to handle the situation so the cops don't blame him for his daughter's disappearance.
Please excuse my wife, officer. She's having difficulty dealing with the current situation.
Understandable. Any parent who hasn't seen their child for 3 days would react exactly like your wife, Mr. Grimrose.
An average-height woman with a sharp face and bright eyes entered the room and sat next to the mayor.
And you are?
I'm Detective Cooper, assigned to your daughter's case. The higher authorities said you were adamant to bring her home as soon as possible. But now, to my surprise, you seem calm.
What does that mean?
It means, Mr. Mayor, that you don't look as heartbroken as your wife.
How dare you say that? I love Alice more than anything in this world. The entire town knows how much she means to me.
The entire town knows how much you have advertised her defect to gain the sympathy of your people. Did you know she was bullied in school?
This is outrageous. You can't talk to me like this.
Did you know she was bullied?
Yes, Alice mentioned.
And what did you do about it?
There's nothing I could do about it. She needs to toughen up. I won't be around to save her from every trouble for the rest of her life.
We found Alice's chopped up hair in the school backyard. I think her bullies took things too far this time. We are questioning each one of her classmates. I'm confident we will find out what happened to your daughter soon.
Do you think she's dead?
Detective Cooper turned her face towards Mrs. Grimrose. She was looking at her with a scared, painful face.
We certainly haven't found a body, Mrs. Grimrose. But in case of missing person cases, if the individual is not found within 24 hours, then the statistics say,
Oh my God! No! Alice!
Mrs. Grimrose broke into tears. Alice's grandmother came and escorted her inside the bedroom while trying her best to console the poor mother. Mayor Grimrose's face turned pale for the first time. He looked genuinely scared. The sudden change in his body language depicted that he wasn't ready for a shock like this. The cops left with Detective Cooper. The entire police department ran 4 to 5 area searches to find Alice Grimrose's body, but nothing surfaced. Detective Cooper was just about to get inside her car when she heard an officer yelling her name while running towards her.
Detective! I found a body.
Without any more ado, everyone drove to Moorview High. On the school ground, the cops were lined up under this big oak tree. Under the tree laid the body of Edmund Fisher.
who found him?
The watchman. He said he heard a snapping sound followed by a scream.
Call him.
The officer brought the school security, and after 15 minutes of interrogation, a few shocking pieces of information surfaced. It seemed like Edmund climbed this tree, and the branch he relied on for support backstabbed him. The branch broke, sending Edmund plummeting. After a particularly nasty drop, he landed on a strong upright branch that split his entire body down the middle. It was a grisly sight. What sounded more shocking is that the watchman saw a girl with long black hair walking into the school. The news of the death of Edmund Fisher spread all over town like wildfire. His dear friends Trisha and Samantha couldn't believe their ears. They also felt weird that Edmund went behind the school all alone. Upon questioning, both Trisha and Samantha told the cops that Edmund told them his dad is on the way to pick him up, so he was going to wait in the school. The girls left for home knowing their friend will be picked up by his parents, and then he was found dead. Even though Edmund's death got ruled out as an accident, Detective Cooper couldn't wrap her mind around it. Is Alice still alive? And if yes, then did she have any part in Edmund's death? Trisha used to come here with Edmund. They both loved swings, and today she is alone here for the first time. Not even in her wildest dreams she thought she would lose Edmund. Are the rumors true? Did Alice visit him when he died? What if Edmund died because of the horrible things they did to Alice? She didn't tell her parents or the cops about how they used to bully Alice every day since middle school. Trisha sat on one of the swings, the sadness curled up inside of her chest. She felt heavy and broken. The more she swung, the more Edmund's face flashed in front of her teary eyes. In the spur of the moment, she didn't realize she was going too high. Suddenly, she heard a metallic creak and everything went black.
I was walking my dog and saw her swinging. Suddenly, the frame collapsed. I ran to catch her, but she instantly fell to the ground. Her face struck hard on that rock. Her brain splattered on my shoes. And then I saw this girl with long black hair standing across the lot, watching this poor girl die. I couldn't see her face.
Okay, you can go now.
A big frown appeared on Detective Cooper's forehead. A young officer with a worried face came to her.
What's happening to this town, Detective? Everyone's saying
Saying what?
that Alice's ghost's taking revenge on her bullies. I mean, there's no doubt both deaths are accidents. We even have a witness. Those who saw the dead bodies also saw Alice in the same spot. If she was alive, someone would have seen her. A 12-year-old girl can't hide in this town without being seen for 4 straight days.
So, you want me to tell the authorities that a girl's ghost is killing the kids of this town?
The officer immediately went quiet. Cooper looked at the swing frame. Suddenly, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The second swing, which was still attached to the frame, caught her eyes. The bolt looked sturdy and strong enough to hold the swing in place. No way this could have loosened up on its own. She quickly looked at the broken swing. Its bolt had a few marks on it.
What do you think this is?
Probably tool marks. When the workers fixed the swing, the wrench they used might have resulted in these marks.
Or when someone loosened the screw on purpose, knowing that Trisha often comes here.
But how could they know she'll sit on this particular swing? She could have sat on this one, too.
You're right. Let's check. Sit on this one.
What?
Just sit on it, Miller.
Officer Miller sat on the swing, and as he took one leap, the bolts broke down, making him fall, along with the second swing.
You're right. Both the screws are loosened up. It's a trap.
Come with me.
Detective Cooper drove to the school's backyard with Officer Miller. She parked the car outside the fence and then entered the ground from the small back gate. Her eyes were constantly checking out the tree. She took off her boots and started climbing. Officer Miller watched the respected detective climbing the tree like a kid. When she reached the broken branch from where Edmund fell, she got goosebumps. Without a single doubt, she realized before Edmund climbed onto this tree, someone cut it halfway with a saw. So when the poor boy sat on it, his weight snapped the branch right away. These aren't the works of any ghost. These are well-executed murders.
Didn't one girl's parents say she was a close friend of Trisha and Edmund?
Yes, the daughter of the town pastor.
Drive to their house. Right now.
They jumped in the car and took up full speed. The setting sun is slowly pushing the town into the darkness of the night. When they reached the town pastor's house, they heard a scream. A woman was screaming. Detective Cooper ran inside the house and found the inevitable has already taken place. The pastor's daughter is missing. She was in her room the entire day, but when her mom went to call for her for dinner, she found her room window open and the study table lamp lying on the floor.
Someone took her away! I bet it's the killer, Detective!
Did Samantha have any favorite place in this town?
What? I don't...
This is not time to think, Pastor. Your daughter's life is in danger.
She loved the lake. She often visits it on holidays.
Miller, get in the car and call for backup.
When they reached the lake, they could hear the screams of the little girl coming from the lake. Detective Cooper took out her gun, and so did Officer Miller. They both ran to the end of the lake, following the screams. What they saw swept the ground beneath their feet. Samantha was held to the ground by an unknown attacker. The light post illuminated the scene. At some distance stood Alice, the disfigured daughter of the town mayor. She had a wig on her head, which was already out of place, and she was staring at Samantha with wide, still eyes.
Stop! Throw the knife away and back away from Samantha. I swear I won't say it again. One wrong move and I will shoot you, Mrs. Grimrose.
Mrs. Grimrose turned back at Detective Cooper with hungry eyes and a demonic face. The sweet, heartbroken mother has suddenly turned into a demon from hell. Seeing the gun pointed at her, she slowly let go of Samantha.
The moment I saw red nail polish on the tree branch, I knew it was you. I remembered the crumbled nail polish on your right hand the first day we met. It's hard to climb a tree with such long nails, I suppose.
The backup arrived within 5 minutes and escorted the girl back to her house safely. Mrs. Grimrose was taken into custody, and Alice was sent to the hospital for further checkups. Detective Cooper was sitting opposite of Mrs. Grimrose. She had no remorse in her eyes, no regrets. The town mayor stood on the other side of the glass and watched his wife confess to the murders of their daughter's bullies.
Yes, it was I who killed those piglets. They deserved it. I went to pick up Alice from school that day. I was going to tell her that I'll homeschool her myself, that the kids won't be bullying her anymore. And then I heard her scream. I went to the backyard and I saw her running into the woods, chased by those 3 cruel kids. They chopped her hair off. Can you believe that, detective? They held her down and chopped off her hair so she can be even more miserable. So, it was you who hid Alice all this time and made it look like she got abducted, or even worse, murdered. Yes, I kept her in the attic. She hasn't spoken a single word since that day. She's like a living husk now. That's when I decided I will take her revenge. I couldn't stop her selfish father from using her illness as a show. That disgusting son of a witch is the main reason why my daughter never felt safe. After killing Samantha, I was gonna kill him too. Why did you bring Alice to the crime scenes? I wanted her to watch. I wanted to show her that her mom loves her. She's not going to let people live once they have hurt her daughter. I thought, if she watched them die, she might start talking again. But she never said a single word. Just witnessed these deaths like a mannequin.
Detective Cooper ordered the officers to take Mrs. Grimrose away. She was put into prison for lifetime. Mayor Grimrose resigned from his post and left without any traces. Alice lives with her grandmother now. No one knows when she will talk, but her grandmother lets her wear the wig still today. When you're little, there's no way you can't love ice cream. As a kid, I was obsessed with them. From the most traditional flavors to those flavors that everyone hated, there wasn't an ice cream I said no to. Needless to say, I knew the times when the ice cream man would come by. I knew the tastes he was bringing, and I always tried to be ahead of everyone in line so that I would get the flavors that I wanted. Everything was going more than perfect, but one day, the ice cream man decided to move. From that day on, I ate a lot less ice cream. Since my parents were always busy, it was very difficult for them to coordinate a time to take me to the ice cream shop. Whether or not it was just a childish whim, in those days, I began to feel much sadder. Everything went on like that until one day, a sound revived me. The distinct sound of an ice cream truck coming into my neighborhood. I grabbed the money I had saved and ran desperately to the ice cream truck, which was parked a few blocks from my house. All the kids started to gather. Everyone started to leave with their ice cream. Desperate, I started pushing my way through the line until I got to the front, and when I got there, the face of the ice cream man terrified me. He was a middle-aged man. His hair was thinning, and physically, he didn't attract much attention. What really scared me was his face. It was as if all his skin was pulled back, as if it was sagging. His head looked extremely flattened, and his skin was a strange green, as if he had some kind of disease. But of all, what scared me the most was his smile. He had a gentle, kind, loving smile. But combined with his face, it was terrifying. The man kept that smile on all the time as he served another ice cream. I didn't understand how no one else noticed. It was as if behind that smile, he was hiding something. Something extremely dark and diabolical.
Hey, kid, you still haven't made up your mind?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'd like a mint ice cream, please.
Mint ice cream?
Yes, I'm sorry if you don't have any. I'll order another one.
Oh, no, don't worry. I have mint ice cream. In fact, it's my favorite. I was just surprised that a kid would ask for it.
Behind me, a friend of mine got more and more impatient. He was Martin, my childhood neighbor and schoolmate. His little sister had disappeared on a trip to the city with her aunt, so Martin was still very upset.
Sir, can you stop talking? I've been waiting a long time.
In response to this, the ice cream man didn't answer him, just stared at him for several seconds with a terrifying, almost obsessive look and smile. It was impossible to decipher what the man was thinking at that moment, but I didn't want to know either. After a few seconds of silence and possibly terrifying that poor boy for life, he answered him.
Oh, I'm sorry, young man. Of course, I'll take care of you too.
Excuse me, I hadn't told you what ice cream I wanted yet.
But you sure wanted this one, didn't you?
Yes, I'm sorry, sir.
Martin grabbed his ice cream and left, not before giving me a sidelong glance and signaling me as if to join him in conversation. After the man also gave me my ice cream, and with a tetric smile, I said goodbye. I left with my friend who, together with Alan and Jimmy, were waiting for me at the side of the sidewalk.
What a weirdo, am I right? I still have goosebumps. That man was terrifying. Did you see how he looked at you? I think he liked you. Oh, shut up, I saw you there. Are you jealous? Yeah, you have no idea how jealous I was. Hey, this ice cream he gave me. Try it. The one you didn't order? Let me see. Ugh, this is horrible. What the hell is it? I don't know. The label didn't say anything. I think he made it? God, man, he must really dislike you. You don't say. Hey, we were just talking. How about we go check out his truck when he's not around? Why would we do that? Because this guy is really weird. Can't you see he's hiding something? But isn't it dangerous to do this? Nah, we'll go when it's night. I know him. This person lives in front of my house. He has the habit of leaving the van open.
It may seem strange, but what my friend was telling me made sense. This is a very safe neighborhood. Everyone leaves everything open, confident that nothing will happen. My friends and I agreed, and that same night we would execute the plan. Just as Alan had said, the van was unlocked, and it didn't even have an alarm on it. We started to look around, and there was nothing really remarkable. There was no ice cream. He probably kept them in the coolers. The van was huge, so it was easy to tell that this man was very wealthy.
Hey, come on. I think I found something.
When we all approached, there was something red on the ground, stuck. We all panicked and looked at each other. Was it blood? Suddenly, a door in the back opened violently, and with a smile, the ice cream man stared at us. We all froze. With a huge grin, he turned around and locked the van. At that moment, he turned his back on us, not afraid that we would attack him. He knew we wouldn't. He knew we were scared to death. We were like 4 rabbits locked up with a snake.
Nice night, right, guys?
Still, with his huge grin, he walked over to the spot on the floor and with his big, long finger, touched it and put it in his mouth.
Raspberry jam. Isn't it delicious?
Isn't it blood?
What an imagination you have, little ones. That's not blood.
At that moment, I could swear that his eyes got much bigger. They became more red, sadistic, and full of perversion.
I would never dirty my workstation with blood.
We all fell silent, paralyzed with fear. Every second that passed, the man treated us better and better. The smile grew bigger, distorted, and terrifying. I felt that if I looked at it too long, my heart would stop, but I couldn't stop. It was as if something in their smile and their eyes compelled us to see it. This person had a really terrifying aura about them. We knew he was a normal person, but we still felt he was a monster.
What's up, kids? Cat got your tongues? Hey, I have an excellent idea. If you wanted ice cream so badly that you came here to get it, why don't you try my new recipe? When I saw you on the cameras, I knew you were dying to try some delicious ice cream, so I brought you 4 of them.
Sir, can we go? We promise we won't come back.
Oh, no. Of course you can go, but you can come back whenever you want. Anyway, I won't let you leave until you eat your desserts.
We all opened the ice cream, It was still cold. It had not melted yet. The taste was repulsive, but I couldn't identify what it was.
You must be wondering about the recipe, right? This is made from my own skin, my own blood, and the garbage under my fingernails. Also from my fingernails.
Hearing this, we all started spitting out the ice cream. With the same characteristic smile, the man approached Martin and spoke in his ear, although we could all hear him.
Little Martin, this is the second time you don't like my ice cream. I must admit, I'm very disappointed. This ice cream was especially for you, you know. It was made from your sister.
Martin's face transformed. It was as if he had no expressions, just pure shock.
I hope you guys don't tell anyone about this, because if you do, the rest of your families will end up here, and we don't want that to happen, do we? Right, Martin?
Yes.
Great. Go on, boys. Have a great night.
We all went home terrified, without saying a word to each other, and never spoke of it again. A short time later, Martin's sister turned up alive. Apparently her aunt had a nervous breakdown and had taken her away. The man had lied. Maybe he had also lied about the ingredients in the ice cream that he made us eat. But after what we lived through, none of us wanted to check it out. Today, we are all still friends, and we still remember that mysterious maniac who, a few weeks later, moved away, saying goodbye to all the children with a huge smile. As for me, I never ate ice cream again. Every time I see them, not only do I remember the taste of that man's ice cream, but I also remember the fear, the terror, and all the horrible feelings I felt that day. And worst of all, I remember that that man is still out there, and maybe he is still seeing children, giving them ice cream with that huge smile.
Oh, you're early. Anyways, come on in.
I was sitting with a grumpy face when my mom entered the living room with my newly appointed babysitter. I'm 12 years old, and I don't at all need a babysitter, but my parents were adamant. A skinny, nerdy dude stood with my mom, looking at me with a nervous face.
You must be Dylan. I'm Joshua.
I looked at my mom and said,
Great. He seems stupid, looks stupid, and even talks stupid. What a choice, Mom.
Dylan, apologize to him now.
Fine. Sorry.
Joshua smiled awkwardly, and my mom started explaining to him the rules.
There's enough food in the fridge. Also, I left money on the kitchen counter for you guys to order pizza. Dylan likes watching scary movies, but don't let him stay up late, okay?
Yes, Miss Roger.
Goodbye, Dylan. Do behave.
They left, and Joshua sat beside me.
So, you like
Yeah, scary movies.
Me too.
Really? You want to see something scary?
Yeah, sure.
I knew he was lying just to show how brave he is, so I played this really scary movie with lots of gore in it. 10 minutes into the movie, I could already see Joshua's face turning pale. He was probably screaming inside. I was enjoying seeing him getting all stressed and scared.
Maybe we should order some pizza.
Yeah, I'll make the call.
He almost sprinted to the kitchen to get away from the TV screen. I couldn't laugh more. I heard Joshua ordering a pepperoni pizza with extra cheese. That's when another evil idea came to mind. Why don't I ask him to play hide and seek? This way, I will be able to scare the shit out of him. Once Joshua came back, I proposed the idea of the game, and he agreed happily. I think he felt glad that he won't have to watch the disturbing movie anymore. Before we began the game, I felt the need to drop the kids at the pool, so I went to the washroom. Sitting on the toilet while taking dumps, I weaved plots on how to frighten my babysitter to his death. That's when I heard the doorbell ring for the second time. I was a little surprised at how early the pizza got delivered, but when I came out, I saw Joshua staring out the main door with a freaked out face.
What are you doing outside?
I thought it was the pizza guy, but no one was there.
Then it might be a ghost from the TV.
There's no such thing as ghosts.
He locked the door and looked around with a freaky face. This dude is a chicken. Without wasting any more time, we started the game. First, Joshua went to hide and I found him in 5 minutes. The stupid nerd tried to hide under the kitchen table. When I asked him why he didn't try to hide in the basement, he replied,
The dark kind of freaks me out.
That's it. He gave me the perfect plan. I told him it was my turn to hide now and that it will be better if we turn off the lights. He seemed scared, but then for the sake of presenting himself as a responsible adult, he agreed. He turned to the wall and started counting.
1, 2, 3.
I hid behind the kitchen counter and watched him. I had the TV remote in my hand. As he started searching for me and came close to the TV, I suddenly turned it on at full volume. The sound of the jump scare from the movie almost gave him a heart attack.
Ah! Not funny, Dylan.
He unplugged the TV so I couldn't do it again. That's when I thought to go hide inside my parents' closet so I can jump on him by giving him the final scare. I tiptoed inside the bedroom and opened the closet, and that's when my stomach dropped. The pale moonlight from the bedroom window has fallen inside the closet, making it visible enough even in that dark. Inside the closet lay the body of a young boy. His head was wrapped in a plastic bag. He was suffocated to death. Drops of sweat appeared on my forehead. My legs began trembling. The second doorbell. Suddenly, I noticed a wallet peeking from his shirt's pocket. With shaking hands, I took it out and found his ID. The name on the ID read, Joshua Miller. If my real babysitter, Joshua Miller, is lying dead in my parents' closet, then, with whom am I playing hide and seek with right now?
Oh, Dylan. You didn't go to hide in your parents' closet, right?
I heard his footsteps coming into the room. I quickly hid under the bed. My heart was beating faster than ever. There's a murderer in my house. From the gap under the bed, I saw a pair of legs walk in, then stop right in front of the open closet.
Congrats! Looked like you found your babysitter.
I realized the game that I agreed to play a few moments back has now become a survival task because truly my life depends on it. I put a hand on my mouth so that the killer couldn't hear my heavy breathing.
Now that you found him, I better introduce myself. I'm Kyle. Joshua used to be my best friend before he slept with my girlfriend. I mean, can you imagine? This piece of shit managed to steal someone's girlfriend? So, I did what had to be done.
He kept on narrating his story while walking all over the room. I could only see his legs from under the bed.
So, a few days back, I got to know he has taken some babysitting jobs. That's when I decided to kill him. It was safe to do it in someone else's house, you know? Trust me, I only meant to hurt him, not you or your parents. My plan was simple, to reach early before him and then wait for him to arrive. Then kill him, hide his body until you go to bed and secretly get rid of it without any of your knowledge. Everything was going according to my plan, until you found out. What will I do now, huh?
Saying this, he sat on my parents' bed. His feet dangled nearly half an inch away from my nose.
Tell me, what will I do now? I don't think you can keep a secret, which means I have no other option left.
He suddenly jumped from the bed and looked directly under it, screaming,
Time for you to die, Dylan! Ah! Who's scared now?
I ran, and Kyle chased me down the hall. I could hear his stomping footsteps. I rushed to go upstairs, and he stuck a knife at me. Luckily, it missed me, but tore my t-shirt from the back. But I didn't stop. I ran straight to my room and locked the door before he could get in. Kyle lunged at the door and stood banging on it with his fists.
I thought you liked the scary movie. This is your scary movie in real life. Come on out, Dylan. Time to play with your babysitter's killer.
That's when I heard the doorbell ring. I looked out of my window. It was the pizza guy. I screamed at the top of my voice.
Call the cops, he has a knife. Call 911 now.
But before the pizza guy could grasp the entire situation, Joshua ran downstairs, opened the door, and lunged at him with his knife. Thankfully, the pizza guy was stronger than him. After quite a struggle, he managed to pin down Kyle and took the knife out of his hand. The cops were called and Kyle was arrested for murdering his friend, my real babysitter, Joshua. My parents came rushing, receiving the call from the cops. They cried, hugging me. I could spot the fear in their eyes. My dad rewarded the pizza guy with a good amount for saving my life. What's even more disturbing is that the cops found sleeping pills, rope, and 3 extra plastic bags in Kyle's backpack. The dude came all prepared. I have no doubt his idea was to drug me using the pizza so that he could get rid of his victim without any trouble. My parents leave me with my grandma these days whenever they have to go out at night. They are never going to hire a babysitter again. Last winter, my brother and I went to a small cabin owned by our uncle in the mountain valley. We drove for 3 hours to reach the place. The area was so stranded that the closest hotel was 70 kilometers away, but we were young and wanted to stay close to nature. My brother and I are both trained skiers, so upon reaching, all we wanted to do was go skiing in the thick white snow. We honked our horns and got down of the car. A teenage boy about 15 to 16 years old came out running from the cabin. He was very young and had a smile on his face. His eyes looked sleepy though, like he was tired. He took our luggage and showed us the way in. My brother and I entered the cabin. It was a small, common cabin in the woods. There was a fireplace in the room, and in the corner was wood piled up for it.
It gets really cold at night,
the boy said in a calm voice. My brother told him that we were going skiing, so it would be good if he could prepare dinner for us. The boy smiled and nodded his head. We got dressed in our skiing clothes, took our equipment, and started gliding down the woods. All the trees were bare, robbed straight out of their leaves. The white snow was sparkling as the sun's rays fell on them. We were going slow because the wind was really cold, and we were halfway in the woods when the snowfall began.
Let's take a break, then we'll head back,
I said to my brother. He agreed, and we grabbed our skis and poles and started walking to this big tree buried in snow. Suddenly, we heard a sound, almost like a small grunt, and we stopped. Next to that tree stood a man. He was looking up at the sky. The snowflakes were falling on his face. We could only see his long neck and pointy shoulders. He didn't move. I looked at my brother. Both of us were feeling a little freaked out. The man was behaving so weirdly. I gestured to my brother to slowly step back without disturbing him and go back to our cabins fast. We took 3 steps back when I accidentally stepped on a twig. It crunched and the man looked down at us. His eyes were glowing like a wolf. There was blood smeared all over his mouth. That's when, for the first time, I noticed his right hand. He was clenching a dead rabbit. Its stomach was ripped open and its entrails hanging out. The man wiped the blood off his face with his other hand, and he smiled ear to ear. I heard my brother scream,
"Stefan, now! Run! Run! Run!"
I started running. My brother was behind me. We didn't see if the man followed us. Breathing and panting like a dog, we came back to the cabin. We slammed the door and double-locked it. The teenage boy realized something was wrong. He came out of the kitchen and I yelled,
"Call the cops now!" "Why? What happened, sir?" "Stefan, there's no network in my phone."
I checked my phone as well. My brother was right.
"The lines are dead here, sir. It's the snow."
The boy replied in a calm voice.
"Did anything happen, sir?"
He asked. I was going to tell him, but then my brother stopped me. He thought the boy will get scared and leave us there. So we told him we heard a wild animal in the woods. He kept cooking quietly. After half an hour, when we have calmed down, we felt embarrassed. So we stopped thinking about the man and went to our rooms to freshen up. A few minutes later, when we came out for dinner, suddenly the light went off. A heavy snowstorm had started outside. I could hear the glass windows trembling with the mad wind.
Hello? Where are you? What was his name? We never asked his name.
My brother and I were looking for the teenage boy when suddenly we heard footsteps. Someone was outside our cabin. My brother and I slowly turned our heads towards the big window right beside the fireplace, and the lights hit. The man we saw in those woods was outside our living room window, resting his bloody palm on the glass and planting his face on it in a distorted way while staring dead at us. He slowly opened his mouth and started licking the blood smeared around his red tongue. His eyes never blinked, pupils never moved. My voice died down my throat. I was stiff as ice. That's when the boy walked in like he was hiding there all this time.
Any problem, sir? It's him. He's the one we saw in the woods. Oh, him?
The boy casually walked to the window, put his hand on the glass like he adored this freak, and looked back at us. His face got the same grin this man gave us the first time.
He's my dad. There's nothing wrong with him. What? You don't need to be scared of him. He's harmless once he is done eating.
I grabbed the car keys from the wall and pulled my brother's hand and opened the door to run out to our car. We didn't care that we were barefoot. We didn't bother that we had no warm clothes on, just in our night pajamas, because all we wanted was to live. We heard the boy laughing and screaming.
There's nothing wrong with him. He just loves to hunt for his food.
The engine rumbled and we got back to the road. Our luggage was inside, but that was no time to go back for them. We drove for about 2 hours and found the next hotel. The snowstorm made it excessively risky to drive, but there was no way we were staying with this psycho father-son duo. Once we reached safety, we called our uncle to inform him about this caretaker boy and his father. What my uncle said gave me chills. No caretaker or third-party employee ever worked on that property. The keys are always under the porch rug. The fact that we stayed with a stranger who appeared like nothing but psychos made me sweat in terror. I gave the phone to my brother because I had had enough for the night. He explained everything that had happened in the cabin and informed him about this boy and his father. He called the cops, and the next morning we went to the cabin with them. No one was there. Our luggage was gone. Most likely they took them. We had no money, no clothes, and not even our shoes. The place was swept clean. We called our dad, and he came the second day to pick us up from that motel and also pay the bills. I still remember that incident with dread. God knows what would have happened if they had any weapons. Since then, I've decided that I will never stay in any stranded cabin for my entire life. This happened in the summer of 2010 when I was just entering my teenage years. My elder sister was having her first baby, so our entire family rushed to the hospital. My mom and dad were constantly talking to the doctor while my brother-in-law was inside the delivery room. I was sitting in the hospital lobby, a little tense for my sister. A few hours later, the doctor came out and told us that she will be having a delayed delivery, so it might take up to 5 to 6 hours more. My dad told my mom it would be better if we just spent the night in the hospital so we can stay close to Bethany. We grabbed some sandwiches from the hospital cafeteria and waited for the newborn to arrive. Now, I was merely 11 years old and hence got easily bored. My parents were busy calling our relatives and talking to the hospital staff, which gave me the perfect opportunity to explore the hospital independently. But I knew my parents would never say yes to this plan, so I lied to them. I walked up to my dad and said,
Dad, can I have $1 for the soda machine?
Here, go.
He gave me the money and got back to his conversation with the doctor. They never expected me to wander into a big hospital at 1 a.m. As soon as I got the $1, I headed straight to the soda machine, which was on the 2nd floor. The delivery was happening on the 3rd floor, the maternity ward. Once I got down to the 2nd floor, I realized how stranded the hospital was at that hour. There was a lady attendant in the reception watching videos on her phone and laughing. She looked at me once and then went back to her phone. I walked to the end of the corridor, stopped near the soda machine and inserted the money. Just when I was about to press the button for soda, I saw two men wearing white lab coats come out of the elevator. They seemed quite agitated, and I overheard their conversation.
And then I told her there's a reason why the psych ward is located in the basement. Seriously, some interns never learn. I know, they think passing an exam makes you a doctor, but you don't know shit until you step into the real environment.
The two men walked past me, continuing this discussion with anger and restlessness. I didn't understand the context of their conversation, but one thing that stuck to me was that the hospital has a psych ward in the basement. I was not aware of the medical terminology, so I thought psych ward stood for something kind of like a secret laboratory. My interest peaked quite immediately. I grabbed the soda can and got into the elevator, but instead of going up, I started going down. Destination, basement. The elevator door opened, making its usual ding sound. A long corridor with a red door at the end stood in front of me. A man dressed as a security guard was dozing in the corner. Without disturbing him, I managed to get to the door. The signboard on the top of the door flashed "Psych Ward" in big block letters. I expected to see scientists running around with beakers and test tubes in their hands, but stepping in, I saw nothing like that, just a sketchy yellowish hallway with blinking lights. A pungent smell of urine and strong chemicals clogged my lungs. On both sides of the hallway stood lined up cabins. I took a sip from my soda can and started walking ahead. For the first few rooms, I saw nothing because the doors were closed. Then I noticed a room on my left. Its door was wide open, and a sound of heavy breathing was coming from that direction. The saying that kids are stupid 100% applies in my case. I stopped outside the room to see what was inside. There was a bed and a woman. The woman was chained to the bed tightly. Her hands and legs were tied with metal shackles. She was breathing heavily. Her bony body was going up and down with each inhale and exhale. It wasn't my first time in a hospital, so I got confused seeing a patient kept in that way. I took another sip, resulting in a slurping sound, when suddenly the woman turned her head towards me, opening her big, scary eyes.
What are you drinking?
I will never forget her face. She had no flesh, only skin wrapped around her skull.
Sprite.
I haven't had Sprite in such a long time.
Why are you tied to the bed?
I don't know. The people here are cruel. They treat me like an animal. Will you give me some soda, little boy? Don't be cruel like them. Come close and pour some soda into my mouth, please.
I looked at the door where I entered. The security was still outside. I hesitated for a second, then slowly approached her.
There you go. You're such a good boy.
Her eyes dazzled with each step I took towards her. When I was inches away, she opened her mouth, took out her red tongue, and made a hissing sound. I sprinted away from her in fear, drops of sweat appearing on my forehead. The woman let out a huge grin and then started singing.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
I rushed to leave, but suddenly the room opposite of hers opened, and a man wearing nothing but underwear came out. He was about 8 feet tall and had a huge head that bobbled constantly. He stretched his arms towards me and picked me up from the ground. My feet were dangling in the air. He smelled my hair and looked me dead in the eyes. He never blinked. I was so horrified that I forgot to scream. He finally put me down and said,
"You're not her. She smelled different when I dug her up,"
and walked back into his room. I would have peed my pants if he didn't let me go. I ran straight to the door, pushed it with all of my strength, waking up the security from his dreamland, and burst into tears. He was shocked to see a kid around 1 a.m. wandering inside the psych ward. I was crying so badly that my words barely made any sense. He escorted me to the reception on the second floor right that moment. The woman at the counter had already seen me before, so she remembered my face. She announced finding an 11-year-old lost in the hospital. My parents were also searching for me by then, so they came down after hearing the announcement. My mom hugged me tight, and my dad scolded me for roaming around the hospital without any adults by my side. My sister had given birth to my niece by then, so my traumatic situation robbed me of the chance to celebrate for her. There were formalities left for her discharge, so my dad stayed back with my brother-in-law, and I was taken home by my mom. The entire night, I slept hugging her. Even today, when I recall that terrifying memory, I hear the woman's voice in my head, her creepy laughter, and her even more creepy singing.
Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer due. I'm half crazy, all for the love of you.
Would you believe me if I told you that working at KFC can be a dangerous job that can cost you your life? I know, it seems ridiculous, and I think it's ridiculous too, but when you think about it, you realize that most jobs are not dangerous. It's the people in them. It's something I understood after my time at KFC, where if my attacker didn't like me, I would have ended up just as my boss. It all started when Charlie started working. Even though I was just another employee in the kitchen, I interviewed him and recommended him. Charlie was a young man, very dedicated and eager to work. I remember I was struck by how he dreamed of working at KFC. He seemed obsessive, as if it was the dream of his life. Although I found it quite creepy, I didn't think it was an impediment for him to work here. I might even say it's a good thing. When Charlie started working, I knew I had made the right decision. The guy was punctual, efficient, and responsible. He even made me proud of my decision. But after a few months, everything changed. His behavior was erratic. He was still working very well, but his appearance was getting worse and worse. Sometimes he would arrive very late, but other times he would arrive hours early and just sit there, doing nothing. Initiating conversations with him was becoming more and more difficult. I couldn't help the feeling that he wasn't paying attention to me, that he was disoriented, thinking about something else. One day, my boss came looking for me to talk to him.
Ace, did you need to talk to me?
Come on in, Wendy. We have a little problem that I need your help with.
Charlie, right?
Yes, it's out of control.
Of course. It's the late arrivals, isn't it?
I'd like to say yes, Wendy, but it's much more serious than that. In the last few days, we noticed that some food was missing from some orders, and coincidentally, he was disappearing from his station. When one of your co-workers went looking for him, she found him hiding, eating the chicken pieces. It wasn't even hunger, Wendy. He just ate the skin and threw the chicken away like garbage. When he left, he didn't even bother to hide the evidence.
Oh my God! What's wrong with him? You want me to talk to him, don't you?
No, we've given him enough chances. I'm gonna kick him out, Wendy.
Oh, I understand, Ace.
I just called you here to let you know that even though you hired Charlie, this is not your fault at all. In the beginning, he was a great candidate, and you trained him well. You just can't know what you'll be dealing with after a few months.
I understand, Ace. Thanks so much for telling me. Do you need help telling him?
No, you can imagine I've done this many times before. Besides, I know you like him, but I wouldn't want you to get involved even for now. To tell you the truth, Wendy, I'm very angry, and I'm not going to treat him very well.
As I left the office, I saw Charlie walk past me, looking a little lost. With some pity, I stopped and greeted him.
Hey, Charlie, you're a good friend.
Thank you.
And without looking at me, knowing what to expect, he kept walking. I assumed this meeting would be short, but it was not. Many minutes passed and no one came out of the office. We all began to wonder what was taking so long. After 2 hours, the situation became untenable. Something strange was going on. None of my coworkers wanted to go in, so I, being the one who has the best relationship with the boss and Charlie, went in to ask a random question. As soon as I walked in, my head was filled with doubts. The office was empty. But something was wrong. No one had left, and Ace's cell phone was still on the desk. I got a little closer, and when I understood what was going on, I gave a scream in alarm.
Oh!
Ace's body was already on the floor, full of blood. There were marks on his neck as if he had been strangled, but what caught my attention the most was his skin. It was like if someone had ripped it off. Many pieces of skin were missing from his arms, legs, and even his abdomen. Had Charlie done this? I turned to run away, but behind the door and avoiding my exit, he was there. Standing there, looking at me in expectation of what I might do.
What have you done, Charlie? Have you gone crazy?
His hands were covered in blood and sweat. He had taken off all of his clothes, leaving only his underwear. And what scared me the most was his face. He had a maniacal smile. He was happy like the day he started working at KFC. It was like he had won the lottery.
Wendy, did you know that the skin is tastier than the meat? I always wanted to work at KFC. Imagine being able to eat all the skin you want. Isn't it a treat?
Charlie, they'll put you in jail. How did you do something like that?
I'm sick of being judged. Sick of everyone looking down on me. Sick of always being the weird one. Do you think I'm weird too, Wendy?
With all this violence, Charlie started digging his nails into my arm, bringing his mouth close, ready to moderate me. I gave him a sharp punch in the ear, which temporarily drove him away. I ran for the exit door, but fell back down. Charlie was grabbing my foot.
How does he dare to fire me? No one fires me from KFC.
This man was about to devour me, and there was nothing I could do. Physical violence was not a solution, so I settled my thoughts and tried to defeat him the only way I knew I could win.
But, Charlie, you killed the boss. That makes me the boss, and I don't want to kick you out.
Suddenly, his anger subsided and turned to surprise.
What?
You're a great employee. You really want to work here, and that's what's important. You just need to come in earlier, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry I'm running a little late. So you won't fire me?
No. And if you come in earlier, you'll be the employee of the month. You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Yes. Thanks, Wendy. You're a great friend. I promise to be more punctual.
Great. Hey, can you go back to the kitchen? We're a little short-staffed.
Oh, sure. The employee of the month will do his best.
And desperate, Charlie opened the door and ran out. I locked the door, and as I began to hear the screams of all my coworkers at the sight of him, I called the police as fast as I could. It wasn't long before the police took him away. His screams were heard throughout the establishment, and as customers took pictures or left, Charlie could only look at me. That same day, I also went to the police station to testify about what I had seen. Soon after, this began to be reported in the media in our country. Apparently, Charlie came from a family of psychopaths, so they used him to find his parents, 2 serial killers on the run. On his side, he managed to avoid going to prison. Charlie was sent to a psychiatric hospital where he would get the help he needed. I will never know if he will ever get better. I quit within a week and never wanted to hear about the case again. Honestly, I had more Charlie and KFC than I could take.
Jonathan, Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Mina, do you take Jonathan to be your lawfully wedded husband?
I do.
By the power vested in me by God the Almighty, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
I still remember the day I married Jonathan. He hesitated when the priest said he could kiss me. I felt the distance between us right then, and now, in these past few months, that distance has only increased. Even though we share a bedroom, he spends most of his nights in the basement of our house. He inherited a good amount of money from his parents, and also this big, stranded house. Sometimes I feel this house is too big for two people. To pass my time, I keep myself busy in gardening and Jonathan in his experiments. There's a small room in our basement with a red door. Even though I'm allowed to go into the basement, Jonathan never lets me go inside that room. He keeps it locked and carried the key with him 24/7. Upon asking him, he says it's his private laboratory. There are dangerous chemicals and expensive machinery scattered in that room, which is why it isn't safe for me to go in. So far, I've just brushed it off, but now I'm sure that there is something very wrong with the man I was married to. One night, I woke up hearing footsteps downstairs and found myself alone in the bed. I got up and peeked downstairs to see my husband heading down the basement with a dead raccoon in his hand. Blood was dripping from its gushed out entrails. I asked with genuine concern,
What is that in your hand, Jonathan?
He looked up nervously, not expecting to see me awake, then smiled awkwardly, saying,
Just a roadkill.
What are you doing with roadkill?
Need it for the experiment. Go get some sleep. I'll be up soon.
And that's it. This is what Jonathan does every single day. He wanders into the woods, drives down the highway collecting roadkill and dead animal carcasses. A few days ago, a big box arrived from Amazon. My husband was busy in the basement, so I received the package. I was about to open it when he came running.
Mina, that's not for you.
What's in it? It's so heavy.
Nothing. Just some beakers and important lab equipments for the experiment.
He almost snatched the box from my hand and went back to the basement. I knew I'd go crazy if I didn't find out what was happening in that basement, so I made a plan. While making breakfast, I heard Jonathan coming to the kitchen. I quickly grabbed my phone and acted as if I was talking to my mother.
Sure, Mom. Yeah, it has been a while. I haven't seen you guys either. Okay, I'll be there soon.
I pretended to disconnect the phone call when Jonathan asked,
Is everything all right?
Yeah, it's just Mom. I was thinking of visiting them tonight. With you being so busy with your experiments, I get bored a lot.
I saw a surprising sadness on his face. Even though we were living under the same roof for a while now, Jonathan never showed me any affection. He scratched his head and asked,
When will you be back?
Tomorrow. Why?
He came close and held my hand for the first time. His eyes were different.
I know I haven't been a good husband to you. I'll be done with my experiment tomorrow, so I was thinking we can finally go somewhere and spend some time.
Sure.
You promise you'll be back tomorrow?
I'm just gonna be at my mom's house, not to some other country.
Just promise me that you'll be back by tomorrow.
He sounded more adamant than pleading. I couldn't tell if it was love or something else, though. I nodded my head.
Yes, I'll be home tomorrow.
When I started the engine, Jonathan stood at the driveway waving me goodbye. This was the first time in the last months Jonathan treated me like his wife. I was questioning myself that maybe I shouldn't spy on him. Some men are reserved by nature. It takes time for them to open up. And maybe he really is doing some stupid science experiment, but something at the back of my mind kept telling me the truth isn't always visible. After roaming around the town for 3 hours, I parked my car into the woods and waited for the night to fall. I might have dozed off. When I woke up, it was dark outside. The crickets were chirping in the bushes. I got down from the car and walked to the house. The house was in deep silence. I carefully opened the main door with my keys and entered. I was sweating in fear, not knowing what was going to happen next. I tiptoed to the basement. A rotten smell of days-old meat hit me right away. The sound of movement and objects cluttering was coming from the room with the red door. It wasn't locked this time. A thin ray of light was coming from the gap behind the door. Not having me around gave Jonathan full freedom tonight. I stopped outside the red door. My heartbeat got faster, taking a long, deep breath. I peeked in. Jonathan was standing in front of something. I couldn't tell what. Piles of dead animals' entrails, fur, and skin were scattered all over the floor. It took me a few seconds to realize what Jonathan was holding in his palm. A big eyeball, probably dissected from one of his roadkills. Is he going to eat it? He slowly raised his hand. I was sure he was about to eat it, but no. On his other hand, he had a tube of super glue. He applied some glue on the eyeball and then stuck it on the thing standing in front of him. So far, his body has been blocking my view, but now he moved aside. What I saw made my heart leap into my throat. A rising panic made my body tremble. There was a mannequin right in the middle of the room, but the mannequin was covered with thousands of eyeballs. Some eyeballs were small, each having different colored pupils. After all, they belonged to various different dead animals. It was like a vicious artwork where a human body is set on display after being decorated with raw, dead eyeballs. So, this is what came from Amazon. Jonathan ordered a freaking mannequin so he could experiment with his diluted sense of creativity. But even though its entire body was covered, the actual place where eyes should be remained hollow. The eye sockets were empty with no sets of eyes in them. Jonathan admired the horrible statue for a few seconds and blew it a kiss. I felt like I needed a bath seeing him react that way. The real horror came after. He smiled ear to ear and said in a spine-chilling voice,
"One more day. Just one more day. Once Mina comes back, you will have your human eyes. You will finally be complete."
I was in a complete state of panic. My hands were cold and clammy. Dread twisted in my gut. That means all that affection in the morning, the gesture of showing me that he really wants me was nothing but a lie. He wanted me to come back so he could have my eyes. What kind of psychopath is my husband? I wanted to get out of the house. I wanted to run as far as possible from him. I got out just like I came in. When I sat inside the car and was about to start the engine, I got a text from Jonathan.
"Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Miss you, love."
It was Saturday afternoon. I was selling ice cream by the park when an expensive car stopped next to my truck. A man dressed in a blue suit got down from the car and approached me. His huge, shiny Rolex watch didn't go unnoticed by me. He gave me a slick smile and said,
"Do you take bookings?"
I didn't, so I said no. He thought something while looking at the sky and then gave me his card from his leather wallet, which also looked expensive.
"My son Muriel is getting 6 tomorrow. He wanted to have an ice cream truck for his birthday party. I'll pay you $500.
I needed the money badly, so I accepted the gig right away. He turned around to go back, but suddenly stopped and said,
"The party starts at 6 in the evening. Hope you have no problem working late at night." "No, not at all. I'll be there."
The man drove off in his car. I looked at the business card and saw the man is a doctor. His name was written, Dr. Joseph Heiter. The next day, I reloaded the truck freezer with as many flavors as possible. I put on a fresh shirt and a clean apron. Around 6:30, I reached the location. It was a big, luxurious villa that reeked of money from every inch. The huge iron gates opened automatically once my truck stopped near it. I entered the front lawn and heard birthday music coming from the back of the house. I drove the truck around to the back and stopped at the side of the huge yard. The place was decorated with balloons, lights, colorful chains, and all that you would expect from a lavish lifestyle. There was a huge bouncy castle set up in the middle of the yard, and a little boy was bouncing crazily as if his life depended on it. That's it. Yes, that's it. There were no other kids, which we generally expect at a birthday party. The boy suddenly noticed the truck and screamed.
Ice cream! Yes! Dad, the ice cream man is here!
At this time, I was so shocked to see no guests at this lavish birthday party that I overlooked Dr. Hyder sitting on the back porch, rocking on a chair and watching me. Once our eyes met, he smiled and came to me. The kid rushed to my truck, and honestly, I've never seen such a creepy kid in my entire life. His braces reminded me of Darla from the movie Finding Nemo. He slammed his hand on the counter, yelling,
I want all the flavors in a big jumbo bowl. I want the biggest ice cream. I want it! I want it!
Calm down, Muriel. He'll get you as much ice cream as you want.
I wanted to ask where the other kids were, but too much curiosity kills the cat, so I kept shut. I took this big bowl and poured every scoop of the flavors I brought. Muriel watched me with a creepy face. The kid was jumping and fidgeting. He seemed overly spoiled and rude at the same time.
Here you go, Muriel.
I handed him the big bowl, and he snatched it from my hands. Before heading back to his jumping house, he looked at me with an angry face and said,
Won't you wish the birthday boy? Wish me, wish me!
Yes, of course. Sorry, Muriel. A very happy birthday to you. May all your wishes come true.
They always do.
He went back to the ride just like he came. Dr. Hyder realized my confusion.
Muriel's my only son, and he's a special boy. He has a problem with sharing, so he likes spending his birthday alone. It's better that way. I see. Whatever makes a kid happy. Honey, please come out!
Mr. Hyder called out, and I saw a woman dressed up in a white wedding dress coming out of the house. My eyes slowly shifted from her dress to her face, and the hair at the back of my neck stood up. She had a bloated face, almost like a frog, a forever smile stuck on her face. Her eyes were bulging out like they would drop down from her sockets at any moment. She stood beside Dr. Hyder like a puppet on his strings.
Meet my wife, Sherilyn.
She nodded her head up and down while her smile remained intact.
Hello, ma'am. Congratulations on your wedding.
Dr. Hyder let out a creepy chuckle and said,
It's been 8 years since we are married. She's just wearing this for Muriel. Our son loves seeing her beautiful mother in her wedding dress. Love you, hon.
Saying this, he kissed his wife on the cheek, and I saw her tremble once his lips touched her face. It seemed to me the kiss caused her pain. Her face didn't look normal at all. It was as if she was holding tons of cotton balls inside of her mouth, yet there was no sign of scar or bruises from the outside, so I couldn't tell what exactly was wrong with her. Her eyes felt like she needed help. I could see them turning teary.
Ma'am, would you like some ice cream?
I asked out of general courtesy.
No, she's on a special diet. It's time to cut the cake, Muriel. I'm getting the cake now.
The kid jumped up and down in sick joy while shoving ice cream in his mouth. As soon as Dr. Hyder went in, the woman suddenly grabbed my hand and tried talking.
What? What is it? Are you all right?
But she wasn't able to say a single word. She tried opening her mouth and soon started choking on something. There was something stuck in her mouth. I couldn't tell what. Her eyes rolled up like she was about to vomit at any minute now.
Oh my God, what's happening to you?
Her grasp on my hand tightened. Something was about to come out of her mouth. What happened next will forever be printed in my memory. She made a puking sound, and a chain of tongues, all stitched up like a big garland, came out of her mouth. I have never seen anything that horrible in my entire life. 5 to 6 human tongues were sewn in the form of an articulate surgery with her tongue. In a distorted, almost inaudible voice, she begged.
Ah!
I jumped into the driver's seat and started the engine.
Dad, the ice cream man is running away!
I heard that evil child scream. I couldn't stay back anymore. I wanted to help the poor woman, but I neither had the time nor anything to defend myself with against the psycho doctor and his deranged son. I drove like crazy. The iron gate detected the sensor, and thank God it opened before Dr. Hyder could take any action. I heard the kids' laughter and clapping.
She's doing the tongue trick again! She's doing the tongue trick again!
As soon as I got past the gates, I heard running footsteps. In the rearview mirror, I saw Dr. Hyder chasing my truck with a hunting rifle. He fired a shot that broke my side window, but failed to hit me. I have never driven faster in my life. The gates closed behind me. I can't explain how I got home that night. I called the cops and gave them the address of Dr. Hyder. The aftermath of this incident is even scarier than the incident itself. The cops went to the address, met Dr. Hyder, and his family called me back for filing a false report on him. Can you believe this? The cops said the eminent surgeon was living happily with his son and his wife. They even sent me a picture of the family to confirm his wife's identity. The woman in that picture wasn't the woman I saw at the birthday party. The cops said they even searched his house, but found nothing suspicious. Dr. Hyder was chucked out clean. Still today, I have found no news, no missing person report on that woman whose tongue was sewn with many other human tongues. I have no idea if she's alive or dead. Dr. Hyder is a mad doctor, probably running horrific human experiments in his house without anyone's knowledge. It scares me to sleep when I try to think about what happened with those people whose tongues he cut off to give that unknown woman a bizarre makeover. For as long as I can remember, I've always been a very curious person. Many times being like this has been good, and sometimes bad, but the worst by far has been what happened in, as I decided to call it, the Lego place. Giving a bit more context, back then I had been exploring abandoned houses with my friends for months. They did it for fun, but I did it out of curiosity. I loved looking at the rooms and thinking about what had happened in there, but I never thought I would actually find anything.
Promise you'll send me pics.
Several days ago, we had agreed to go to a house on the outskirts of the city, but my friend had refused just that day, even though she wanted to come.
Sure. I'll go next time. I know. See you later.
I soon hung up the phone and wrote a message to Peter, the friend who was going to accompany me. We usually planned to go to places after his work, so he was always a little late, but never as much as on this occasion. I received his answer soon. It was an audio. I had a problem here. I don't think I can make it, Claire. Okay, I replied. Were you already there? He asked me seconds later. Yeah, I sent him. I knew I should go, but there was something about that house that made me want to go inside, so I decided to. I'll take a look, I told my friend. Without waiting any longer, I put my cell phone away and started walking towards the house. The tall, uncut grass and growing vines told me that it had been abandoned for a long time, but it didn't look deteriorated at all. The roof was complete and the entrances closed. In fact, I had to force a door, which I had learned to do long ago. It took several minutes, but I finally made it. It wasn't very big, but it had 2 floors and several rooms, each one emptier than the last. There was even the typical graffiti that you would see in any other abandoned house.
How boring.
As usual, I marked each of the rooms I had already seen with a yellow color. The last one was the only bedroom on the first floor. It had a giant window with which I could see everything that was in the front of the house. Claire! That's how I managed to notice that my friend had arrived even before hearing him.
I'm here.
I waved at him from where I was standing before going to the front door. He looked at me a little annoyed. I was worried. You shouldn't have gone in alone.
I'm fine, okay? There's nothing interesting anyway. It's almost as good as new.
Really? Peter glanced around the house. Let's explore together. I might notice different things than you.
Fine, but not worth it.
Together, we toured the second floor first. Peter would open a door, survey the room, and then close it. He soon saw the last one in the area and said, "Everything is perfect."
You mean it's perfectly boring?
I mean, like new. It didn't take long for him to close the door, but this time he stared at the mark that I had made. Then he touched it and looked at his hand to see if it was dirty.
It's dry at this point.
But as if Peter hadn't heard me, he continued to examine his hand. Why did you mark it?
Why did I mark it if it looks like new? Makes no sense. I just wanted it to have something different.
I think you shouldn't have done it.
It doesn't matter anymore, does it? Let's go.
Just as we went downstairs, Peter and I saw the door to the only bedroom on that floor. Looks like you didn't check that one.
I didn't mark it, but I've already been there. It's the room I was in when you arrived.
My friend tried turning the door handle over and over again, but it seemed to be locked, which left me speechless. With a lump in my throat, I watched Peter force it.
There's no point in opening it again.
Are you sure you did it? I fell silent once again. All of a sudden, the place was starting to get very cold.
Why did you insist so much? This place has nothing.
Just let me see. What had that been? The wind was blowing at my ear, but there were no windows open. The sounds the door was making as Peter forced it was also driving me crazy.
Stop. Let's go.
Give me a second, Claire. I had goosebumps, although I didn't know if it was from the cold or something else.
Let's go, Peter.
He finally made it. Done, see? Now just in front of us was the same room as before, but this time it was full of colors. On the floor, there were only hundreds and hundreds of Legos.
What the hell?
I took a few steps forward and bent down to touch them.
They're real. Pete.
Suddenly, I felt something push me, causing me to lose my balance and fall on top of the Legos.
Ah!
I heard something behind me. The door had closed.
Peter?
I tried to get up, but there were so many Legos that I just fell back down. The weight of my body on those small objects was causing them to dig into my skin.
Open the door, Peter. This isn't funny.
I can't, it's locked again. My knees were burning more and more. It was unbearable, so I leaned on my hands for a moment.
Do something.
The tips of the Legos pierced the flesh of my palms as I heard Peter bang on the door. At some point it opened, so I quickly crept out into the hallway. I ran to the front door, but then it hit me. My friend was nowhere to be found.
Peter? Peter!
Suddenly, some knocks on the door next to me began to be heard. Claire! I hurried to open the door. As expected, there he was. Ah! Somehow, the Legos were digging into his skin with amazing speed, like it was just water. Ah! On his face, on his hands, on his legs, they were all over his body. I didn't know what to do. I was in shock. Suddenly, the door closed. There was a pale, thin boy with a trail of dried blood tears on his face next to me, but I couldn't even scream. Did you understand? Don't ever do that to my house again. In the blink of an eye, he was gone. It was at that moment that I left the place. I ran to my motorcycle, but my legs gave out and I fell on the ground. Claire! Oh my God! My friend was there, next to me, looking at my wounds. There were still a lot of Legos stuck in my skin.
How did you get out?
What are you talking about? I just got here. I called you 1,000,000 times. From that day on, I stopped exploring abandoned houses, as I didn't want to be tortured by some other spirit. I've tried to forget about the incident, but every time I see Legos, my wounds start to ache and make me want to throw up. For as long as I can remember, I've encountered many people who have had the strangest phobias. Some are afraid of pets, others are afraid of people, and some are even afraid of the color yellow. My fear may not be as weird as the last one, but even so, people are still surprised when I am terrified of Legos. I can't describe how much I am repulsed by them. When I see them, I just want to kick them as far away as possible and leave. Many people think my actions are unjustified, and maybe I'm a little crazy, but nobody had Legos inside their body. Nobody had Legos covering their entire throat and stomach. None of these people almost died from Legos. To be fair, it wasn't the Legos that almost killed me. It was the person who was playing with them. During that time, I was a babysitter. I was good with kids, and even though I didn't really like losing weekends to babysitting, I needed the money to move out on my own and go to college. The clients trusted me, and they knew me all my life. So much so that after a few months, they even recommended me to all their friends, and so I started working on weekdays as well. Everything was going great until I got a call to take care of a new child. The lady on the phone seemed sweet, kind, and gentle. She told me that she and her husband didn't need to go anywhere, but because their son was taking up so much effort and energy, They needed to have an afternoon off, even if it was just to watch a movie at home. They also told me that the neighbor across the street, Mrs. Gloria, recommended me. They lived a few blocks away, but I needed to work, so I went. I thought about bothering Mrs. Gloria before going, as I wanted to know all about that couple that had called me, but it was 7 a.m. and I didn't want to bother her. I rode my bike to the elderly family's house. When I arrived, I looked it up and down. It looked like a normal house, not very striking or special in any way, like the kind of houses I usually visit. I was about to enter, but a lady stopped me from behind, grabbing my shoulder and speaking to me.
You must be Chiara, right? Oh, yes. I'm sorry, you startled me. Nice to meet you. You're Mrs. Thompson, right? Dear, call me Lois. Of course. Nice house, Mrs. Lois. Did I give you the address of this house? I'm sorry. I live in the house across the street.
When I turned around, I saw the lady's house. It was really huge and in perfect condition. I could tell she had a lot of money and a very good taste. Normally, I wouldn't go in her house because she had given me the wrong address. It seemed a little suspicious, but maybe it was my teenage innocence or my need for money, but I ended up trusting her and going to the house. As I entered the house, her husband, who looked the same age as her, welcomed me with open arms.
You must be Gloria's neighbor. Nice to meet you. My name is Al.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Al. My name is Chiara.
I know. Gloria told us so much about you. It's good to have someone we can trust to take care of little Ed.
They both walked me through the huge house to the boy's room. As soon as they opened the door, a little boy was on his back, kneeling against the wall. Trying to make a good impression, I went over to greet him.
Hello, little Edward. My name is Chiara. A pleasure to...
When I touched his back, the boy fell down and made a thud against the floor. This was not a child. It was a plastic doll.
Ed, it was very hard to find her. Take good care of your new babysitter because she will be the last one this year. You understand? Who are you? Oh!
Behind me stood the real Ed. This was a huge adult, over 40 years old. He was almost 6 feet tall and his body was large and deformed. He was wearing a bib and diapers.
Yes, Mom. Yes, Dad. I'll take care of her.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I can take care of...
And before I finished, they closed the door and locked it. Edward looked at me with innocent and terrifying eyes, while drool was falling from his mouth.
Are you my new toy?
No, I'm not a toy. I'm a babysitter, and you must listen to me. Do you understand?
Look, Daddy bought me a huge bag of Legos. Do you want to play?
We will play later, but now I have to talk to Mom and Dad, and then I'll come back. Understand?
No! I want to play now!
Furious, the man dressed up as a boy jumped violently at me. While grabbing my head with one hand, he used the other to rub Legos in my face. They were just toys, but they hurt like hell.
Play! Play! Play!
Somebody help! Okay, I will play with you.
Suddenly, the man stopped and gave me a big smile.
Yes! Let's play the food game!
Yes, sure.
For the moment, I had no choice but to play along. I had some pepper spray stashed away. I could use it to escape, but I had to be cautious. As Ed threw Legos at a toy plate, I slowly approached my bag. I noticed that there was a moving camera in the corner of the room. They were probably spying on us, so I had to be careful.
Here's the food! Enjoy it!
Thank you, Ed. This is delicious, Ed. Did you cook it?
Dummy, you're not eating! I'll help you!
No!
With enormous violence, Ed jumped at me again. With one hand, he grabbed my hair, and with the other, he started shoving Legos into my mouth.
Ed, you're hurting me.
You must eat! So you'll grow up to be a big, strong girl! Eat or there'll be no dessert!
His gaze was totally lost. He had gone totally crazy from 1 second to the next. I closed my mouth as hard as I could, but that was the only thing I managed to do, as Edward opened my mouth with his huge hands and, full of Legos, almost shoved it down my throat. I wanted to vomit, but I had no room for anything. I was swallowing Legos like crazy. I was choking. I was having a hard time breathing in, and in the act of desperation, I kicked Edward, who let go of me and started crying.
You're so mean! I just wanted to feed you!
The kick wasn't even that hard. I looked at him, confused, as he spat the Legos from the floor. Suddenly, the door opened, and angrily, Al came to the rescue of his son Edward while his wife came at me with a knife.
How dare you hurt our son, you brat! I will kill you!
As the woman ran towards me, I took my chance and took the pepper spray out of my purse.
You play with him, you damn witch!
No! Mama!
They both ran towards her as I ran out of the house, desperate. Many neighbors saw me leaving and quickly called the ambulance. I had swallowed too many Legos. The only thing that saved me from suffocating to death was that the doctors arrived quickly, as the ambulance was only a couple blocks away. After what happened to me, the elders were arrested and the whole truth came out. They didn't know my neighbor, they were just watching me. They wanted me to be Edward's next victim. These two people were not his real parents. He had been kidnapped when he was still a teenager, and from then on, they took care of him as if he were their own. Edward didn't know he was killing all those people, but his fake parents entertained themselves by watching him. Edward was taken to a crummy psychiatric hospital, but since I moved to the city and started working, I got permission to move him to a better place. He now recognizes me as his big sister. I'm no longer afraid of him for what he did to me, because just like me, he was just a victim of the real monsters who manipulated him too. Hey guys, my name is Robert. Maybe everyone who knows me around here knows that I'm just another local doctor, but I used to work in the big city. When everyone knows that I worked in such a central and populated place, they all ask me how could I go back to a small town, since the pay is less and the days are more boring. My answer is just simple. I did not come in search of tranquility, nor to be close to my family. I only came out of fear. Fear that those people who tried to kill me in the most cruel and ruthless way possible do not find out that I'm still alive and come to finish the job. It all started when I was just a nurse. I had just graduated from university and was one of those young aspiring doctors who would give everything for a chance to prove themselves. The dream of every newcomer was to save a person's life in a major surgery. But all this doesn't happen until you have more experience. At this point, I was just inspecting medications or taking care of patients in intensive care. Make no mistake, I was happy with this. I knew it was part of the natural progression to being a great doctor, so I did my job to the best of my ability. Someone had to. One day, I was taking care of a patient. I was looking for the medicine to give him, but I noticed that there was no more left. So I had to go to the warehouse to get a new bottle. When I got there, I grabbed the small bottle of liquid and was about to go back, but I noticed something strange. Out of curiosity, I read the bottle and noticed that this medicine had expired more than 5 years ago.
What? It can't be.
I grabbed more bottles to inspect them, and they all shared the same oddity. All of them had already expired many years ago. This had to be a mistake. I went to the director's room to inform him of this. Maybe it was a problem with the inventory. I knocked on the door, and from inside, a hurried voice was dispatched.
What do you want, Robert? It's not the best moment. Dr. Cole, there's an irregularity with a medication I'd like to show you. Not now, kid. I'm too busy.
And he simply left. I was about to go back and ask a doctor what to do, but Dr. Cole's behavior made me very curious. He has always had a calm, relaxed, and charismatic demeanor. Besides, not now, kid? The doctor always treats me very well, and several times he expressed to me that I am one of his favorite nurses. He would never treat me that way. Was there something wrong with him? Maybe he had a serious problem and I could help him. Without him seeing me, I followed him to the parking lot and from there to the back exit door. Dr. Cole walked a few more yards to a darker area, an area where I knew some doctors went to smoke during their breaks, but since it was snowing, no one went during this time of year. When he arrived, someone was waiting for the doctor. A strange, tall, muscular man with a mostly covered body seemed to be waiting for him. When the doctor arrived, the man took off his hat and revealed his face.
Ashton, so nice to see ya. You're getting later and later. Are you fooling around with a nurse? It's getting harder and harder to get out, Joe. I'm afraid they're keeping a much closer eye on me. They might notice. Did you bring the money? Did you get the drugs? When have I failed you?
Joe? I know this man. I saw him on the news recently. This man is a dangerous mobster with an arrest warrant. What business could he have with Dr. Cole? In my head, I was putting things together, but when I saw the drugs, I understood everything.
Hey, Joe, I got another complaint from some nurse today. He got his hands on your merchandise. I need you to take the job seriously next time and alter the date. You know how long that's gonna take, right? Do it, or it's over for us. We're being discovered. I say when it's over. Do you understand?
Sir, look! He's a very curious little animal.
Suddenly, a new voice sounded from behind me. My blood froze and my body was paralyzed. They were talking about me. Both men looked in my direction, and I turned around and saw him.
Oh, great. Bring him here.
Before I could react and start running, the huge man hit my belly with an extremely strong blow, and I fell down without air, dizzy. By the hair, the man pulled me to the mobster and threw me close to him.
Robert? Do you know him? He's a new nurse, has lots of energy and asks too many questions. I'm sure he wants to save the world. Oh, that's so sweet. What were you listening to? Did the wind bring you here, butterfly? I don't know who you are. I just wanted to smoke a cigarette.
You sure couldn't find the pack, could ya? I seen you listening for a long time.
Is that so? Doctor, what should we do with the child? Don't ask me that question. You're the mafia boss. Do what you do best. Indeed. I guess I am the bad guy, right?
Please, don't kill me. I won't say anything.
Oh, that changes everything. Did you hear, Vinny? He won't say anything.
That's a relief, boss.
Joe, can you hurry up? People will start asking questions if we're late. Wow, the doctor doesn't like you, kid. Vinny, get the shovels out. We'll make a snowman.
Not understanding what was going on, I watched as the man started digging a hole in the snow while the mobster kicked me all over the body. Crying, I could not react. I could only see the doctor staring at me helplessly as he smoked a cigarette. His gaze pierced my eyes, and that was all I could see. I felt pain, but what hurt me the most was that sideways look, watching my life being extinguished. After a few minutes, my body was so wounded that I couldn't move. The mobster seemed to know this, so he just kicked my body into the snow hole. Laughing and joking, my body began to fill with more and more snow as the man put the snow back in the hole. Minutes passed and everyone was gone. I tried to escape, but I couldn't move. My body was both sore and numb. I was trapped in a coffin of snow, feeling like I was slowly freezing to death. I could no longer breathe, and the snow felt like a gelid fire burning me slowly. At that moment, nothing else made sense. I didn't have to go and complain about the expired medication. I didn't have to follow the doctor. I didn't have to do anything. What was the point of doing the right thing? No one was doing right by me. No one was coming to save me. It was all pain. My eyes slowly closed and I began to see a light. Was I dying? No, that was the light of the sun. As my eyes closed from the brightness of the sun, I saw a familiar face ahead of me. That man was a homeless person whom we let stay in the hospital. Was he hiding, watching everything, waiting to save me? I couldn't ask myself any more questions. I just fell asleep. And when I woke up, I was in a hospital ward I didn't know about. I was approached by a coworker who was in plain clothes, and that's when it hit me. This was not the hospital where I work. The man who rescued me had told him everything. They both thought it was a lie in case Cole asked them, but that never happened. He never asked about me, as I never even existed. When I recovered, I went back to my hometown to live a quiet life. Maybe someday I will denounce Mr. Cole, but even though I know I will be judged, I don't dare to do it for now. I want to enjoy my family and friends. I don't want to die. I have to admit that being the ice cream man was the most rewarding job I've ever had. I admit the pay wasn't the best, but the job wasn't hard. All I had to do was serve ice cream, and in return, everyone loved me. Normally this would be a good thing, until you realize that maybe being loved by the wrong person can be the worst thing that ever happens to you. It all started on a normal day. A day I woke up thinking that nothing strange would happen, just reloading the merchandise, going around my neighborhood, and selling ice cream. Everything started exactly like that, until I met a very unusual customer. A blonde, very tall, and overweight man approached the ice cream truck.
I want 10 lemon ice creams. No, make it 15. Oh, hello, sir. Let me see if I have any left.
As I was checking and picking them up, I felt the man looking in my direction. It was strange. I had my back to him, but I could still feel his eyes on my back. I felt a shiver with every second I grabbed the ice cream. Why was this happening to me? Why did I feel this way?
It's your lucky day, sir. Normally I bring less of these, but it looks like the distributor gave me too much.
With a huge smile, his eyes totally lit up with happiness, the man took all the ice cream and gave me his money.
Thank you very much. You're such a generous man. My family and I love ice cream. Oh, they're for your family. It makes sense. I didn't think you would eat all of these ice creams. Yeah, my family is very sad, you know, but ice cream makes them happy. I just want them to be happy. That's very noble of you, sir. I hope you enjoy them.
As I was leaving, I must admit I felt a little guilty for judging this man. Yes, his appearance was odd, and the way he spoke was even worse, but he meant well and seemed honestly a good person. I felt a little ridiculous for being uncomfortable around him and just went on my way as he happily walked away with his ice cream. From that day on, I started seeing the man's face a lot more often. Every week, he was waiting for me at the same spot, always anxious to order 15 or 20 of the same brand and flavor of ice cream. I could never anticipate what he wanted. Sometimes he would ask for chocolate, sometimes he would ask for frozen chocolates, and sometimes for strawberry or lemon ice cream. The only thing that always remained the same was his smile, that strange smile that, although it terrified me at first, now became a commonplace. On the other hand, not everything was good. Since this man was asking me for so many of the same kinds of ice cream, then I had no ice cream left for the rest of my rounds, and that made the kids pretty sad. Hell, imagine being a kid and waiting all week to eat your favorite ice cream and not getting it because some guy took 20 of those ice creams a few minutes earlier. I knew this could hurt my relationship with my best customer, but I was feeling pretty guilty, so the next time he asked for ice cream, I lied to him.
I want 18 chocolate-filled ice creams. I'm sorry, sir, we're a little short of production this time. I can offer you up to 3 ice creams of the same type. I can also recommend you the chocolate ones or these ones filled with... No! I want the chocolate ones!
In just a second, his smile vanished. His shout made me think he was angry, but he seemed more puzzled as if my answer had thrown him off.
Sir, I'm sorry, but I don't have that much ice cream. But you really should give the rest a chance. Your family will surely like to try more variety. Liar! My family will be mad. They want the chocolate-filled ice creams. Otherwise, they'll all be angry with me and won't talk to me. I'm sorry, sir. There's nothing I can do.
As he didn't answer me, I tried to close the door of the van to leave, but before I could react, the man jumped desperately towards it, getting inside.
What do you think you're doing? Get out of my truck, now! Sir, you don't understand. I need those ice creams. I need them now. My whole family will hate me. They still won't talk to me, and I'm very close to making them talk to me again.
This man was totally crazy. His gaze was lost and he was frantic. It was as if inside this adult man lived a child and a rabid monkey. At that moment, I was terrified, but I could not give in because it could cost me my life.
Sir, I don't know what your problem is, but I'm 1 second away from calling the police. Get out of my truck. No! Liar! I know you have ice cream! Why are you lying to me? Why are you all lying to me?
Furious, he began to choke me with one hand. I tried to defend myself, but his strength was enormous. With his other hand, the man opened the mini fridge next to him and extended his other hand into it.
Liar! Here they are! You wanted them all for yourself, didn't you? You were going to eat all my family's ice cream!
The man took his hand off my neck, and I breathed as hard as I could, but the terror wasn't over yet. He was still on top of me, trapping me in his huge body. When I was still reacting and understanding what was happening, my peace was gone in just a second. The man had not stopped choking me to free me, but he wanted to use both hands on something else. With one hand, he was holding a popsicle stick, and with the other, he was ripping the popsicle off the stick.
What the hell are you doing? Get off me!
Without any response, my attacker began to shove the popsicle into my mouth. Not satisfied that I didn't swallow, his huge, filthy hands were shoved inside my mouth, down my throat. Between all the ice cream, I could feel his huge, greasy fingers running across my tongue. Without missing a beat, he grabbed another ice cream and repeated the process over and over again. I can't describe to you what I was feeling at that moment. I was gagging, and at the same time, I wanted to throw up, but because of all the ice cream I had in my mouth, I couldn't. To make it even worse, have you ever eaten ice cream too fast and your head started to hurt? Imagine what I was feeling at that moment as whole scoops of ice cream ran down my throat in just seconds. The man was insane, totally blinded. It was as if he didn't even know what he was doing, just shoving more and more ice cream into my mouth without even looking at me, as his gaze was totally lost and he didn't even look angry. Just when I thought all was lost, my salvation came through the back door. Some children saw what was happening and called their parents, who came to my rescue. They quickly pulled the man away, and while the others asked me if I was okay, I fainted. The next thing I knew, I was in the hospital. A nurse met me with a doctor who told me they had saved my life by a miracle. I almost choked on my own vomit, and if the doctors in the ambulance did not treat me quickly, I would not have been able to make it to the hospital. Soon after, a policeman came in to ask me to testify about what happened that day. My attacker was not the kind of family person I thought he was, but a killer. His whole family was dead in his house. Their decomposing corpses were littered with melted ice cream. The man was not aware that they were dead. He thought they were just ignoring him, and that by bringing them ice cream, they were going to talk to him. From that day on, I am no longer the ice cream man. I gave the truck to one of my sons who needed to work, and now he is in charge of bringing joy to the children. Every day he leaves, I fear he may not come back. I know this may sound ridiculous, but as crazy as our world is, even being the ice cream man is not safe out there.
Daniel's body arrived? Yes, sir. Dr. Ramos is performing the autopsy.
Agent Cowley went straight into the forensic lab. Officer Brad followed him with a tense face. After all, it's the third dead body in a row. Inside the forensic lab stood experienced autopsy surgeon Dr. Ramos, who had just finished sewing the skull of a 19-year-old boy.
It seems he died from a blunt head trauma. Someone hit him from behind. He collapsed on the ground and died instantly, just like the two previous students. Did you find the other thing? Yes, sir. Which tells us it's the same person who killed Judy and Boris. Here, take a look.
Officer Brad took out a small plastic bag and handed it to FBI agent Edmund Cowley. A small Lego toy of a construction worker with blood was inside it.
Did you talk to the parents yet? No, sir. It's best if you tell them.
Agent Cowley met Daniel's family. His parents shattered in pain and shock, hearing the news of their son's murder. Daniel's mom fainted on the floor, but his dad somehow held the ground. Officer Brad started questioning him about the day Daniel died. Agent Cowley was inspecting the entire house with his sharp eyes when he saw a little boy sitting on the mattress playing with his toys.
Is that your younger son, Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Agent Cowley sat beside Daniel's brother, Jim, and started a conversation with him.
These are all your toys?
Not that one.
Jim pointed out a small Lego toy of a construction worker. The hair at the back of Agent Cowley's neck stood up. He has seen a Lego toy like this before. Not once, not twice, but thrice. He controlled his palpitation and caressed Jim's hair.
Who gave these to you?
Daniel.
Your brother? Did he say anything about it?
He said the kid who went to heaven wanted me to have this.
Agent Cowley looked at Officer Brad. They both realized the untwined mystery hidden in the words of the 6-year-old.
Which kid?
He didn't say that.
Jim got up and ran upstairs with his robot car. Officer Brad looked at Daniel's father and asked,
What is he talking about? I don't know. Daniel never said anything like that to me.
Agent Cowley picked up the Lego toy from the floor and put it in his pocket. They left Daniel's house and got into the car parked outside.
What do you think Jim meant by this boy who went to heaven? The kid is dead, and Daniel knew something about it. So, the person who killed that kid killed Daniel and these 2 other kids as well? Possible. We need to check the school records.
Cowley could feel the investigation finally taking a fruitful turn. Whoever that toy belonged to has something to do with the death of 3 teenagers in his town. When Officer Brad and Agent Cowley reached Crimson High, the classes had just ended. Students were leaving for home, and Principal Morgan was locking his office.
Mr. Morgan? Agent, what brings you here? Within the last 3 months, did any of your young students, probably at the age of 4 to 6 years, die under mysterious circumstances? What? No. Why do you ask? Are you sure? Yes, sir. Crimson High never faced dark times like this before. This is the first time we lost students. We used to be a pretty safe neighborhood.
Officer Brad and Agent Cowley exchanged a confused look. If that Lego belonged to a dead student, then there must be some record. Suddenly, the school janitor came running to the Principal Morton and said,
Sir, she's here again. For God's sake, leave that woman alone. Just escort her outside the school grounds.
The janitor walked away with a sorry face.
What's happening here? Oh, it's nothing, officer. The cleaning lady used to work in our school after closing hours. She had this little boy named Rory. After he went missing, she's gone completely mad. She visits the school sometimes and stares at the kids creepily. Everyone wants me to throw her out, but I feel bad for her. What did you say? Her kid went missing? Yeah. Brad, do you have this report? If she made a complaint, then of course. Go check. Check it now!
Agent Cowley ran outside the school at full speed. He looked around and spotted the janitor escorting a disheveled-looking homeless woman outside the gate. He screamed,
Stop! Stop her!
The woman turned around and smiled creepily. She waved at Agent Cowley as if she came to say goodbye to him. A speeding truck seemed to arrive from the opposite side, and without hesitation, the woman jumped right in front of it.
Damn it!
The area got flooded with cops. After all, it was a recent crime scene. When the paramedics cleared the mutilated remains, Agent Cowley stood on the sidewalk. The trails of blood were still on the road. Officer Brad stood beside him with a disappointed face.
Sir, she filed a complaint about her missing son. She said she brought the kid to school so she could watch over him and work at the same time. The kid must have wandered around the school premises and someone abducted him. Did the cops find out? What happened to him? Sir, actually... What is it? Speak up, Brad. The cops found the kid's dead body in the woods 2 days later, sir. Someone smashed his head with a rock and left him there. What? What happened to the investigation of this case? The appointed officer didn't show much interest because he was the cleaning lady's son, not from a family of importance in this town? You're making me sick, Brad.
Officer Brad remained silent. He felt highly ashamed learning about the department's negligence over the poor kid's death.
Get in the car now! We need to see Principal Morgan. There has to be a link between the death of this cleaning lady's son and those 3 high school teenagers. I have a feeling she's the one who committed these murders.
They drove like madmen. Upon knocking on Principal Morgan's door, he opened it with teary eyes.
Come in, officers.
He sat them down and expressed his condolences over the death of that poor cleaning lady.
Mr. Morgan, the day her son went missing, who else was present in the school? She worked after closing hours, so probably the gatekeeper, but why do you ask? Are you sure? Can any of the students be there too? The gatekeeper is a strict guy, so there's no way students can sneak inside without getting noticed by him. Unless they were in detention.
A red alarm started going off in Agent Cowley's head. He looked at Brad and they both realized the entire scenario.
Yes, I remember now. 4 kids were sent to detention by their class teachers that day, so it means they were there when Rory went missing. Who's the 4th kid? Let me look at the register. I always write down a strike.
Principal Morgan went upstairs. Agent Cowley and Officer Brad were waiting patiently when they heard a muffled noise coming from the kitchen.
What was that?
They took out their pistols and started following the sound. What they saw swept the ground beneath their feet. A boy around the same age as Daniel was tied up and kept on the kitchen floor. His mouth was taped too. Officer Brad rushed to set him free. Agent Cowley tried to make sense of the situation when he heard Principal Morton's voice from behind.
You arrived at the wrong time, Agent.
He turned around and saw Principal Morton holding a pistol in his hand.
It was you? No! It was them! The 4 evil kids who killed my son because he saw them smoking weed in detention! That poor kid wasn't going to tell anyone, yet they lured him to the voice and took his life ruthlessly! Rory was your son? Hell yeah. I was thinking to ask Diana to marry me on Rory's birthday. I wanted them to give me the life that they deserved. I was finally ready to tell the town that Rory wasn't born out of wedlock, that he was my son, that I was his father! Oh my God. Yes, officer. These vermin killed the poor kid and left him to rot in the woods. Diana went mad. My last chance to have a family got ruined forever, and now today she gave her own life. No one could suffer in silence. Put the gun down, Mr. Morgan. I promise I will investigate the case and you will get justice. What will I do with justice now? I killed those 3 and left Rory's toy to let the town know it was his revenge. I took them to the dark alley and they followed their principal because they were scared, because they knew they were bloody murderers. Put the gun down, Principal Morgan.
Principal Morgan let out one last smile and shot the teenage boy. Officer Brad and Agent Cowley shot him right away, but what was done could not be undone. 2 dead bodies collapsed on the ground, and the terrifying Lego murders ended with a shocking turn. Agent Cowley left the town the next day. The case terrorized the townspeople. How far can someone go for love? That's the only question that remained in everyone's mind. I am now living in a different place where everything is a new experience. You might think that's amazing, but the thing is, sometimes what other people consider normal is terrifying to me. I have always been a calm man. In fact, I didn't think that my attitude could ever change. But during the time that I lived in the big city, I began to suffer from anxiety attacks. It was all just too unsettling for me. So, to improve my state of health, I decided to move to a place that would keep me relaxed, just as the doctors recommended. I chose a small town in the countryside, since I had the opportunity to work at the KFC there. I was like, a KFC? There? In the middle of nowhere? but I was even more surprised to find out that it was the only fast food restaurant in town. Anyway, time passed faster than I expected, and my first day of work soon arrived. The KFC seemed to be quite different from the others. Instead of that usual modern appearance, it was cozier, or at least that's what it intended, because the dark wood took away the light and made it look like a very old building. Without waiting any longer, I went inside, but I wasn't really prepared for what I was going to find in front of me. It had been a long time since I came across something like that at a KFC, but even I could say that I had never seen it before, since this statue of Colonel Sanders was different. It was made of metal. Time had already deteriorated it a bit, so it was stained gold in some areas.
Pretty impressive, don't you think?
I just nodded, although my thoughts indicated the opposite.
You must be Jim, right?
I soon found out that only 2 other people were working there. My new coworkers, Steven and Rebecca. They kindly showed me the place. Don't get me wrong, everything was clean, but the darkness and intense heat made me feel like I was in a giant oven. It just wasn't what I would expect from a fast food restaurant at all. When it was time for the preparation of the food to be explained to me, Steven asked me,
You've worked at KFC before, haven't you? Yeah, not too long ago. In fact, that's why I feel quite relaxed.
But you aren't in the city right now, are you?
Rebecca's comment left me silent for a few seconds.
No, of course not. Why do you ask?
In case you haven't noticed, we do things differently around here.
Well, I'm sure I can adapt easily.
I'm not so sure anymore.
Relax, Rebecca. Let's talk about this, okay?
My 2 coworkers went to the kitchen so they could discuss who knows what in privacy. I was willing to adapt, to do new things, so I didn't understand what their problem was. Everything was too lonely. When were the clients supposed to arrive? It seemed as if it were midnight.
Chop. Hey!
I was still alone in that place, even though I could have sworn that.
Jim, come here, please.
I took one more look around before entering the kitchen.
Look, like Rebecca was telling you, we do things a little different around here. You know? Yeah, sure.
We love KFC, but not just any KFC. We love our KFC because we love the way Colonel Sanders prepares food.
So, you are traditional, right? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yes, yes. We make the bread, we grow the vegetables for the salad, and...
We're gonna show you, okay?
I nodded and followed them through the store until we got to a door that I hadn't seen before.
Another room? Why didn't you show it to me before? We had to explain.
The moment Rebecca opened the door and I began to hear the chickens cackling, a chill ran down my spine. It can't be, can it? I thought. From inside the room, the 2 of them waved to invite me, so I entered.
I'll teach you.
Then, I started to hear a chicken making a lot of noise, and I realized what was happening. Rebecca was holding the animal's neck in her hands. Everything was happening too fast.
Wait!
Right in front of me, she snapped the animal's neck. I remained still, thinking.
It's not difficult.
After Steven's comment, Rebecca put the chicken's corpse on the table.
See, we have to do everything. That's the only way to make fried chicken as delicious as Colonel Sanders used to make. Believe me.
Steven's smiling, blood-splattered face disturbed me so much that I had to leave the room.
Jim? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna kill a chicken.
See, this is what I meant. City dwellers are hypocrites. They eat them, but they can't kill them.
You have to do it, Jim. No, I don't have to. You can take care of that.
Colonel Sanders will be upset.
I'll go take a breath.
The next few days, I continued to work while I decided what to do. All I wanted was to be calm, but they wouldn't stop putting pressure on me. Do it, do it, do it, they insisted. Help, help, help. The pressure and the nerves had exhausted me. I had the impression that since I wasn't doing that part of the job, I would be given a lot more responsibilities, like staying late to close.
Sure,
There couldn't be another client, not at that hour.
sure. You have to.
I examined every corner of the room. I had a bad feeling, but nothing was there.
It's an order.
I'm just too tired, I thought. I made my way to the entrance and put my hand over the switch to turn off the light. But first, I took a quick look at the statue. In that instant, I felt a strong pressure on my chest due to how shocked and terrified I was. Colonel Sanders looked upset, but he was also smiling. It was the expression of a total psychopath, but it wasn't just that. It seemed that he had done what I didn't want to do, since his hands and arms were covered in blood. Unconsciously, I turned off the light and everything was pitch black until I had the courage to turn it back on. But the statue was in its usual position. It didn't take me long to finish what I had to do and get out of there. I was terrified. I couldn't believe I was so out of my mind. When I got home, I took a shower and went to sleep, thinking that would help me.
Stop. Huh?
Suddenly, I felt as if something was going through my throat and letting all the blood out.
Let me chop it!
The statue was there, right in front of me. I watched as he, once again, brought the knife to my throat before I lost consciousness.
Ah!
That nightmare had been so real that I could still feel the pain in my throat, but I decided to ignore it and went to KFC, determined to quit.
Good morning, Jim. You look great.
Now that he mentioned it, I noticed that I had a lot of energy, not like the days before.
Just like yesterday. You did a good job, by the way.
You think so? Of course. You chop those necks like a pro. I can even imagine that's how Colonel Sanders used to do it.
Apparently, I had a gap in my memories. How could I have done that yesterday? Something happened a few weeks ago that I still can't get out of my head. Honestly, I don't think I ever will. For a bit of context, my name's Jake. I'm a babysitter who lives in the small town about an hour away from the city. I was contacted by this family who had recently moved in from out of state. They had 2 kids, a boy who was around 7 years old and a girl who was 5. They seemed like a really nice family and the kids were well behaved, so I agreed to babysit for them. When they first contacted me, I'll admit that I felt pretty good about the whole ordeal. I mean, these geeks had no idea how little babysitting paid in smaller towns. The price they offered to pay me was triple what I normally made, so I was more than happy to help them out. I remember the phone call clearly.
Hey, a friend of mine referred me to you. We're new in town and we're looking for a babysitter. Would you be interested? Yeah, sure. I'm always looking for new families to babysit for. When do you need me? How about tomorrow night? We have a dinner party to go to and we need someone to watch the kids. That sounds great. I'll be there at 6.
There's no way I could have known what was going to happen. If I had, I never would have agreed to babysit for them. But as I said, they seemed like a nice family and I needed the money. I arrived at their house right on time the next day. The father answered the door and welcomed me in.
Hello, you must be the new babysitter. Yeah, I am. Sorry about being late. Oh, it's no issue at all.
He told me that his wife was upstairs getting ready and that the kids were in the living room watching TV. He showed me around the house and told me where everything was, and then introduced me to his children. This was the first moment I really noticed something was off. The girl was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. She didn't even acknowledge my presence when her father introduced me. It was like she was in a trance or something. The boy, on the other hand, jumped up from his seat and ran over to me, shaking my hand vigorously.
Nice to meet you, I'm Timmy.
It's nice to meet you too, Timmy.
His energy was infectious, and I found myself smiling despite the weird vibes I was getting from the rest of the family. The father quickly excused himself, telling me that his wife would be down shortly. Minutes later, I heard the door close as he left the house. I sat down on the couch next to Timmy and asked him what he was watching. He told me about some shows that I had never heard before, and I have to admit, I wasn't really paying any attention. My mind was elsewhere. I couldn't help but wonder why the father hadn't introduced me to his wife. It was almost like she didn't want me there. I tried to not think about it, but you have to understand that I was already feeling a bit uneasy about the whole situation. I decided to ask Timmy what his mom was like.
I don't like her. She lies too much and it makes Daddy angry. Want to meet her?
But she's not home right now, is she?
Of course she is. Let's go.
My curiosity was piqued. I understood this was probably just some game a kid would play, but I couldn't help myself. I followed Timmy upstairs, and he led me to a door at the end of the hallway. He knocked on it lightly and then opened it.
Mom, I want you to meet the new babysitter.
I gasped. My heart sprung into my throat. I couldn't believe my eyes. There, lying in a bed in the middle of the room, was a woman. She looked to be in her early 30s, and she was incredibly thin. Her hair was matted and greasy, and her skin was pallid. She didn't look like she had eaten in weeks. What was quite possibly the most horrifying thing about her, however, was her eyes. They were sunken into her skull, and they were completely black. There was no iris, no pupil, nothing. Just two black voids staring back at me. The woman slowly turned her head to look at me, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being stared at by a monster. Her mouth opened slightly, and she spoke in a hoarse voice. I screamed and stumbled backward, tripping over a chair and falling to the ground. I scrambled to my feet and ran towards the door, but Timmy was blocking it. He had a strange look on his face, and I saw now that his sister had joined him.
Daddy says we can't let you leave.
What the hell is going on here? What's wrong with your mother?
I walked toward them, intending to just push past them and make a break for it. But my blood ran cold as I saw a glint of metal in Timmy's hand. He was holding a knife.
Daddy says we can't let you leave because then you'll tell everyone about Mommy. She likes to make pretend sometimes, and if people found out, Daddy would be sad.
Looking wildly around, I remember thinking that this must be some kind of nightmare. There was no way this could be real, but it was, and I was trapped. I had to think of something, and fast. Staring around the room, my eyes set on the window. I sprinted for it and threw it open, not even thinking about the fact that I was 3 stories up. I heard Timmy and his sister screaming behind me as I leaped out onto the thin roof that ran along the side of the house. I edged my way along the roof, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear him. Timmy followed close behind me, giggling uncontrollably. I looked back and saw him standing at the edge of the roof, knife in hand. I screamed at him to stay back, but it only made him laugh harder. I turned back around and kept moving. I was almost to the end of the roof when I felt something sharp slice through my leg. I screamed and fell to the ground, clutching my wound. Timmy was standing over me, grinning from ear to ear.
Daddy says it's time for dinner.
Go to hell!
I kicked him as hard as I could in the shin, and he yelped, dropping the knife. He stumbled backward and fell off the roof, screaming. His blood-curdling screams echoed in my ears as I lay there in pain, waiting for help to arrive. I was later hospitalized and treated for my injuries. I never saw Timmy or his sister again, but I still think about that day often. From the official story, the father had been abusing his children and his wife, holding them hostage in the house. The mother had stage 4 cancer and was close to death. The children had been brainwashed into thinking that if they let anyone leave, their mother would die. I didn't buy it though. I still remember Timmy's sister's soulless eyes, and I still hear his giggling sometimes in the middle of the night. I don't know what happened to that family, but I do know that I never want to find out. I just hope I never see them again.